education, and nature conservation tourism. Accessibility is also key to our environmental protection policies. Borongan emerges as a premier destination, boasting a diverse array of attractions that encompass stunning seas, majestic mountains, expansive forests, captivating islands, and enchanting river systems. Renowned as Surf City, Borongan offers the country's sole surf area nestled within a city center, alongside opportunities for scuba diving and nature trekking. As the host of the second National Surf Summit, we take pride in organizing events at our premier beachfront venue, Baybay Beach, making us the sole LGU in Eastern Visayas to do so. Looking ahead, we eagerly anticipate hosting more national events, further showcasing the beauty and allure of Borongan. In terms of accessibility, our LGU has garnered accolades from Philippine Airlines, the national flag carrier of the Philippines, for having the fastest growing flight route, providing enhanced air connectivity not only to our city, but to the entire province. Serving as the gateway to the Pacific dreams of Samar Island, we have forged unique partnerships that bolster transportation options for travelers. Moreover, Borongan stands out as the only LGU to have created its own departure passenger terminal, recognized as the most professional and innovative partner of CAAP among LGUs with commercial airports. The engineering design of our city terminal has become a model replicated by the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, with terminals in the country. Remarkably, our terminal was constructed in less than 3 months, exemplifying our commitment to efficient and effective transportation infrastructure. To ensure governance operates at peak efficiency, we're leading the charge in embracing technology within our workforce. Developing a comprehensive roadmap for digitalizing our processes, Borongan City proudly stands as the first recipient of DOST's Smart and Sustainable Cities program for Region 8, recognizing our pioneering efforts in adopting digital solutions from various government agencies. The Department of Science and Technology has identified us as a flagship city for this initiative. Collaboration with the state university and private sector is fundamental to our development strategy. By harnessing the resources of national agencies, academia, and private enterprises, we're pioneering innovative ways to deliver social services to Boronganos. Soon, the Borongan app for Libreng Sakay, providing digital passes for free bus rides, will be integrated with digital banking services. This is just one of many innovations in store for Borongan. In every initiative we undertake, from healthcare to agriculture, social welfare to infrastructure, tourism to digitalization, we strive to uplift every member of our community. The foundation of our success lies in the collective efforts of our dedicated civil service, partnerships with esteemed institutions, and the boundless spirit of innovation that permeates our city. Looking forward, we eagerly anticipate the dawn of new opportunities and advancements. Our commitment to embracing technology, fostering collaboration, and pioneering sustainable solutions remains unwavering. Together, let us continue to embrace the golden sunrise of Borongan, symbolizing our collective vision for a future brimming with prosperity, unity, and limitless possibilities.
When the stakes are high, good ideas aren't enough. The difference between ambitious goals and real-world impact is delivery. Is the difference.
In 2019, AC Energy embarked on a transformational journey to become ACEN, the leading renewables platform in the Asia-Pacific region. Over the last 5 years, we transformed the company from a thermal-focused portfolio with about 1,000 megawatts of capacity to a renewables-focused portfolio with almost 7,000 megawatts of capacity. We successfully delivered groundbreaking transactions related to early coal retirement, having successfully completed the world's first ETM, or Energy Transition Mechanism. We're also leading the pilot initiative for the world's first transition credits project in collaboration with Monetary Authority of Singapore and the Rockefeller Foundation. The ACEN brand exudes the challenger spirit, reflecting the daunting challenges of scaling renewables. With a deep sense of purpose, a strong collaborative spirit, we rise above such challenges, consistently deliver, and occasionally exceed expectations.
What makes the Zambales project special is that it converted unutilized land to a productive source of renewable energy. The socioeconomic benefits of the project in Zambales is that at peak, for example, in San Marcelino, we were able to hire 3,700 workers on site, of which 80% are from Zambales. I believe that really spurs economic growth in the province. The project was able to build 2.3 kilometers worth of roads and bridges that provided access for neighboring communities, particularly the indigenous people.
ACEN really is more than just a generating company. They are for the environment, for the country. ACEN is focusing on the education of the people. My father, my mom, they do not have stable jobs. Just to lessen the burden that they are carrying, I applied for the scholarship program of ACEN, and now that I am part of the company that once helped me, I know that I am now capable of giving back.
We pride ourselves to be leaders in the energy transition. We started the movement in our home market, the Philippines. Then, working closely with our partners, we relentlessly pursued opportunities around the region in Vietnam, Indonesia, Laos, India, Australia, and other markets. ACEN is powered by our 1,000-strong individuals. Individuals with purpose, individuals who are about impact.
Nak, kaya pa? Okay po.
Nak, may pamerienda tayo dun, ha? Mahusay, anak. Nak, ikaw munang bahala dito.
Ako po?
Yung investors, close the deal. I trust you.
When the moment demands it, the only path forward is to choose courage.
Sir. This is too inefficient. I'm sure there's a better way.
Not just to face what's in front of you, but to transform.
Hi, sir. Nice to meet you. Anna from Glow Business.
It's the decision to grow, to push beyond limits, and to reshape your own potential. It's choosing not just to endure, but to turn challenges into progress. Doubt into determination, and fear into fuel.
Nak?
Kamusta?
Pa, you're supposed to be resting.
Something wrong at the plant?
Kakayanin naman po. I've got a lot of help behind me.
That's good.
Oh, hijo?
Sir,
Congratulations.
Thank you so much, sir.
Your digital transformation will set us up for years to come.
When the moment arrives, choose to rise above. Choose the courage to transform with Globe Business.
Every day, as the golden sunrise gently brightens the horizon of Borongan, it serves as a reminder of hope, fresh beginnings, and endless possibilities. This natural wonder embodies the spirit of our community, instilling in us the belief that tomorrow holds the potential for something even more extraordinary than today. Welcome to Borongan City, the vibrant capital of the east coast of Samar Island. Here lies the city of golden sunrise, embraced by breathtaking landscapes and abundant opportunities. We are a community with aspirations for a brighter future for generations to come. Our commitment to preserving Samar Island's natural resources ensures enduring prosperity for all. Our strength lies in our resilience and compassion. This guiding principle governs our actions. Over the past several years, our committed civil service has led initiatives that significantly enhanced the lives of our citizens and promoted social development, with a focus on healthcare, agriculture, social welfare, infrastructure, tourism, and the transition to a smart and sustainable city through digitalization. We have set a standard where every member of our community is uplifted. Healthcare stands as a cornerstone of our city. We've institutionalized a nearly 100 million peso fund for the Libreng Medicina program, providing free medicine to all citizens. Through the strategic establishment of 5 pharmacies, assistance reaches not only the densely populated areas, but also the far-flung barangays. As the sole local government unit in the country offering such a service, we take pride in extending aid to our constituents, with plans to cater to the medication needs of cancer patients in the near future. Our city boasts abundant options for establishing food production areas. Our flagship program, Tuwag Agricultura, assists citizens in financing agricultural endeavors, interests, and collateral-free, embodying progress by supporting our farmers. We aim to revitalize this sector by jump-starting capital and operations with an institutional financing facility through the LGU. Borongan has become self-sustaining in hog production, serving as a model for backyard farming. We've scaled our production through hundreds of backyard farmers, spreading opportunities while reducing biosecurity hazards and risks. The same model is envisioned for fisheries and crops, dispersing production to minimize risks and create opportunities for all barangays. This annual 100 million peso funded program ensures food security, highlighting the resurgence of the once-neglected farming community at the heart of our government thrust. Our social welfare programs complement the flagship initiatives by providing economic stimulus through pensions and allowances in sectors most in need. Social aid is implemented through monetary assistance and direct services. Libreng Sakay, providing free bus transportation along Borongan's national highway from border to border, focuses on mobility for senior citizens, PWDs, healthcare workers, SHS students, and college students from 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. This efficient, technology-aided mass transportation system is our vision for Borongan's transportation, contributing to efforts to reduce carbon emissions. The future of Borongan's mobility lies in green mass transportation. Subay Bayani 2023, as the top-performing city for infrastructure development, is one of our most valued recognitions given to Borongan by the DILG. It is a testament to creating a road network to the forgotten areas of the city. We've paved the way to reach them by establishing a 200-kilometer road network to reach the farthest barangays, providing access to almost 90% of all barangays. Government presence can now be felt in the remote barangays of the city. These roads will provide more opportunities for trade, education, and nature conservation tourism. Accessibility is also key to our environmental protection policies. Emerges as a premier destination, boasting a diverse array of attractions that encompass stunning seas, majestic mountains, expansive forests, captivating islands, and enchanting river systems. Renowned as Surf City, Borongan offers the country's sole surf area nestled within a city center, alongside opportunities for scuba diving and nature trekking. As the host of the second National Surf Summit, we take pride in organizing events at our premier beachfront venue, Baybay Beach, making us the sole LGU in Eastern Visayas to do so. Looking ahead, we eagerly anticipate hosting more national events, further showcasing the beauty and allure of Borongan. In terms of accessibility, our LGU has garnered accolades from Philippine Airlines, the national flag carrier of the Philippines, for having the fastest growing flight route, providing enhanced air connectivity not only to our city, but to the entire province. Serving as the gateway to the Pacific dreams of Samar Island, we have forged unique partnerships that bolster transportation options for travelers. Moreover, Borongan stands out as the only LGU to have created its own departure passenger terminal, recognized as the most professional and innovative partner of CAAP among LGUs with commercial airports. The engineering design of our city terminal has become a model replicated by the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, with terminals now being deployed across the country. Remarkably, our terminal was constructed in less than 3 months, exemplifying our commitment to efficient and effective transportation infrastructure. To ensure governance operates at peak efficiency, we're leading the charge in embracing technology within our workforce. Developing a comprehensive roadmap for digitalizing our processes, Borongan City proudly stands as the first recipient of DOST's Smart and Sustainable Cities program for Region 8, recognizing our pioneering efforts in adopting digital solutions from various government agencies. The Department of Science and Technology has identified us as a flagship city for this initiative. Collaboration with the state university and private sector is fundamental to our development strategy. By harnessing the resources of national agencies, academia, and private enterprises, we're pioneering innovative ways to deliver social services to Boronganons. Soon, the Borongan app for Libreng Sakay, providing digital passes for free bus rides, will be integrated with digital banking services. This is just one of many innovations in store for Borongan. In every initiative we undertake, from healthcare to agriculture, social welfare to infrastructure, tourism to digitalization, we strive to uplift every member of our community. The foundation of our success lies in the collective efforts of our dedicated civil service, partnerships with state institutions, and the boundless spirit of innovation that permeates our city. Looking forward, we eagerly anticipate the dawn of new opportunities and advancements. Our commitment to embracing technology, fostering collaboration, and engineering sustainable solutions remains unwavering. Together, let us continue to embrace the golden sunrise of Borongan, symbolizing our collective vision for a future brimming with prosperity, unity, and limitless possibilities.
On the screen. Kindly stand for the Philippine National Anthem.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiging tegas ng sinakanan, alam ng puso, sa dikit mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, kuya ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisisin, sa nagatak tulong sa simoy at sa langit mo bagaw, ay hinatang tulong.
You may take your seats. Please focus on the screen for some key reminders. Reminders for on-site guests. Please put your phone on silent or vibrate mode. Maintain silence while speakers are presenting and the panel session is ongoing. Live questions may be asked during the panel discussion. When given the mic, state your name and affiliation, then your short and direct question. Reminders for online guests. This lab will be recorded for documentation purposes. It is also available on our Facebook page. For Zoom and Facebook participants, please type in your questions via the chat box or the comments section. Vote for questions you like by clicking on the thumbs up icon. To help us improve our labs, please answer the feedback form. You may request for a certificate of attendance by answering the form. Thank you for joining us for the 7th and our last Livable Cities Lab of the year. Today, we will explore the critical journey from planning to action and how we can build cities that are not only sustainable, but truly resilient, keeping our communities safe, connected, and functioning through any challenge. And now, please welcome our host for today's Livable Cities Lab, Josh Wiseman, Senior Project Leader for Asia Pacific at Delivery Associates.
Magandang umaga. Good morning, everyone. That's the extent of my proficiency in Tagalog, so I'm glad to be able to use it today. A warm welcome to everyone. My name is Josh Wiseman, and it's my genuine privilege to be your host for today. To officially kick off today's event, I'd like to introduce Mr. Bill Luz. Now, Mr. Bill Luz, he holds many hats. He's chairman of the Liveable Cities Philippines. He's chairman of Rizalino Navarro Policy Center for Competitiveness at AIM. So please join me in giving him a warm welcome as he shares his opening remarks.
Thank you, Josh, and to Josh and Anna from Delivery Associates. Welcome to Manila, and thank you for being our partner for today on this 7th lab for the year. Good morning, everybody joining us here on site at the Aboitiz Tech Space at Asian Institute of Management, and over Zoom and Facebook for our virtual audience. Thank you for joining us for the 7th and last lab, Livable Cities Lab of the year. We're pleased to deliver this lab together with a new partner for today, Delivery Associates, a global consultancy that works with governments and mission-driven organizations to move from vision to outcomes, and in partnership with the League of Cities of the Philippines, Globe Telecom, and Coca-Cola bottlers, Coca-Cola Philippines. Today, I think it's a very timely topic, from plans to outcomes, delivering resilient cities. All of us in the room, we've seen plans. We've heard of plans. We've seen master plans, resilience plans, disaster risk reduction plans. We may have even seen or heard of a few flood control plans. Some of them exist. Some plans don't exist. They're ghost projects, but nonetheless, they are funded. But here's the catch. Many of these plans, they're documents filled with promises to keep our communities safe from typhoons, floods and earthquakes and other natural hazards. And yet, at least from my vantage point, where I work also with the Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation, when storms hit, the reality on the ground tells us a different story. Stranded commuters, submerged homes, and prolonged blackouts show us a painful gap, the gap between the plan on paper and the outcome in our streets. And in some cases, you ask ourselves, though we experience 20 or 25 storms a year, why is it that we're always acting like it's the first time we've been hit by such a storm? Why are we always wondering, what is it that we need to do? How do we prepare, even though we're hit 20 or 25 times a year? It's a little bit like the movie 50 First Dates. We keep asking the same questions, even though we're hit with the same occurrence. So the question we are here today to answer is not what to plan, but how to deliver. How do we ensure that the billions spent on infrastructure are actually build cities that can withstand the crisis? And how do we move from simply having a strategy to implementing it with precision and accountability? This year's theme, Sustain+Ability, is about exactly that. It's about building cities with the ability to sustain themselves through shocks and stresses. It's about moving from reactive disaster response to proactive, measurable resilience that keeps our communities safe, connected, and functioning. This lab, from plans to outcomes, delivering resilient cities, is where we turn that challenge into action. We move from identifying the problems to implementing the solutions, from broad plans to specific measurable outcomes, from promises to protection. While natural hazards are inevitable, we believe that calamities and disasters are not. If we plan ahead and build systems that can move with crisis, not stop because of it. So today we've got a really brilliant panel organized to speak different topics across different sectors, but all in the same theme of plans to outcomes. We'll be joined by an exceptional panel of experts. Coming online soon, Laurel Blatchford, Senior Fellow at Delivery Associates. Anna Needs, a Senior Partner for Asia Pacific and a member of the Global Executive Leadership Team at Delivery Associates. Reginald James Lorico, Executive Assistant to the Mayor to represent Mayor Jose Ivan Dayan Agda of Borongan City. Felino Ninoy Castro, a Director at the Department of Education, who's in charge of Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Service. Miguel Fernandez, Senior Vice President and Head of Operations at ACEN, or AC Energy. And Jayme Maniti, Senior Manager, Head of Operational Risk Management at Globe Telecom, representing Ryan Battu. Let me just say a few words about Delivery Associates and how we came to be partners. I came across Delivery Associates many, many years ago. This is not their first time to the Philippines. And as the name suggests, they really focus on delivery and delivery of public services and delivery of services by any agency, whether public or private. And their DNA goes back to their engagement with the British government. At that time, I remember I was just telling Anna, I read the first book or one of the early books of their founder, Sir Michael Barber's, how he was recruited to set up a delivery unit within the British government. I think it may have been at the time of Prime Minister Tony Blair, if I'm not mistaken. And his use cases in the book were two things, and I think this is worth looking into, in particular, for an agency. I remember one use case was the NHS, the National Health Service. So they were looking, they took measurement of things like waiting times for patients to get the treatment they needed, and the quality of the treatment, and the queuing times and the accessibility, and they measured it, and they introduced improvements on how to deliver that health service much better. The second one is the second use case I remember was the train services in the UK. And I guess at that time they were notoriously late and unreliable. And again, the waiting times for passengers and the predictability of the service was not there. So again, they measured everything about the service until they slowly introduced and delivered improvements in the train service. And so it's all about measuring the different aspects of that service and placing accountability on people and on departments to deliver the service and to constantly monitor it. And I think that's something that we're sorely lacking in this country, where we get a lot of promises, but they fail to get delivered, and they fail to get delivered on time. And it's not just the flood control projects, but actually many other projects. And until the public gets involved in the projects and agencies get involved in measuring, and as the old saying goes, what gets measured gets managed. And so I think this is something we need to learn from Delivery Associates. I'm happy they're still coming around to the Philippines. On the one hand, it shows that we haven't put these lessons to good use yet. On the other hand, it's a recognition that we need help in delivering services much, much better. So for companies and for agencies and for local governments, I think we should take these lessons to heart, because ultimately, if we want to perform much better for the public, it's really all about delivery and not just the plans. There's a saying, I think, people here comment that we're good at delivering plans and at making PowerPoints, but where the rubber meets the road is the delivery. And so today, our main topic is really going to be all about delivery. So thank you for joining us. I look forward to a very productive morning ahead on this lab. And I'm excited to listen to the speakers and to learn more from Delivery Associates. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Delivery Associates, we've never left Philippines. We've been here all along, Bill, working very closely with some of our partners, including DepEd, who's with us today. It's been an absolute privilege over recent years. Bill, you talk about plans. There are many plans. We've witnessed those plans here, very much so in the Philippines. We hold by two very simple truths at Delivery Associates. Number one, just because you have a plan doesn't mean it gets done. And two, if no meaningful change is done alone. And so that's why it's an absolute privilege to be here. And we are so appreciative of this collaboration with Liveable Cities. We have an audience made up of government, both national and local. We have people here from the private sector, from non-for-profits, from academia, all pulling in the same direction, which is about building more resilient communities. So I guess further, and to expand on that topic, I'd like to introduce Anna Needs, Senior Partner at Delivery Associates, who will introduce our special guest speaker today.
Thanks, Josh, and good morning, everyone. I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank Bill and Yenny and the Liveable Cities team for their fantastic partnership with us on this event. I'd also like to thank our partners, Globe Telecom, League of Cities Philippines, and Coca-Cola Philippines for their generosity. We are very excited about today's event. Now, at Delivery Associates, as Bill was just mentioning, our work across the Asia Pacific and beyond, we see a common story. Leaders with bold visions for their governments and cities who are faced with the immense complexity of turning those visions and those plans into reality. The path from plan to results is often where progress stalls and our citizens and our communities don't actually ever feel the intent of those plans that we often spent such a long time trying to develop. When we talk about moving from plans to outcomes, especially in resilient cities, we're talking about a specific kind of leadership that's required. We're talking about not just someone who, or not just a person or people who are able to navigate some of the greatest complexity in bringing stakeholders together, but someone who's also tested and had that challenge of leading in those very critical moments in time. Our next speaker is exactly that leader. Laurel Blatchford is Senior Fellow at Delivery Associates, and her career is a masterclass in implementation under pressure. Laurel has a deep understanding of resilience forged in response to one of America's most devastating disasters, where she was appointed as the Executive Director of the Hurricane Sandy Rebuilding Task Force. And in that role, she was responsible for turning billions of dollars of recovery plans into rebuilt homes, restored infrastructure, and renewed communities for millions of people in America. This hands-on experience with disaster recovery informs her entire perspective. It's a perspective that she then honed as Chief of Staff at the Department of Housing and Urban Development during the Obama administration, and then later as the first Chief Implementation Officer at US Treasury, where her job was to ensure that historic public investments delivered actual results for communities. So from the White House to the aftermath of a hurricane, federal agencies and philanthropic boards, Laurel has consistently done the hard, essential work of bridging the gap between policy and delivery. It's a privilege of mine to then invite Laurel to the stage. Laurel was joining us from Washington, DC. So welcome, Laurel, over to you.
Hello. Thank you. Anna, should I turn on the PowerPoint now? Does that work for everybody?
Yes, please.
Okay. It is so, everybody can see the deck?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. It is so wonderful to be with all of you, both online and peeking into the room where you're sitting in Manila. It looks like a wonderful occasion. Thank you. I'm honored to be part of this conversation. Also, especially, I know that December is an important month. We're heading into the end of the year. We're heading into the holidays of Christmas. So thank you for the time. As Anna mentioned, I joined Delivery Associates earlier this year after senior roles in the US federal government, as well as in local government in New York City. I've also had the honor of working in the nonprofit and philanthropic sectors. And in each of these roles, resilience has been a through line. The need to support communities and their ability to meet the changing climate, it has only grown more urgent, as many of you know well. So to frame today's conversation, I'm going to offer 5 insights from my own experience that I hope will resonate with all of you and really kick off the day for some rich conversation and hopefully stimulate new ideas and partnerships, all focused on that through line of resilience and delivery, as Josh mentioned. Just turning to the next slide here, making sure it works. Sorry, having a little trouble with my screen. Here we go. Everybody can see that, right? So the 5 insights I want to talk through today, I'll just walk through them quickly now and then go into each of them in a little bit more depth. First, preparation and planning is essential. You may know what is coming, but it is still critical, especially in communities like the ones that you all serve, represent, and work in. Second, resilience isn't just about the crisis. It certainly means being able to respond to the current disaster or the next one. And I know that in the Philippines, that is an ever-present reality. But we'll talk today about how it also means building resilience in your government so that it has the capacity to continue meeting communities' needs, things like schooling, food, transportation, all obviously with the hope of returning to normal or a new normal as quickly as possible. Third, it's just essential that even as you plan for the future, you need to build plans and to do so with plans that outcomes, not just siloed programs or one-off projects, right? You need to be thinking about the outcomes that your communities need over the long term. Fourth, you can't do this by yourself. I'm sure you all know that. That's why you're here. I learned this the hard way many times over. Finding the right partners and the partners that will drive those outcomes is essential. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then fifth, leadership for resilience. You need to ensure that you and those around you put routines, structures, staffing in place to ensure you can keep going no matter what happens. So those are the 5 sort of places I want to start, but let me just dig a little further into the preparation and planning first. So again, I know it goes without saying in this space, and particularly for those who have been through disasters, you can and you should learn as much as you can about the risk your community faces in a number of hazards: typhoons, flooding, earthquakes. You should ensure that there are emergency plans and emergency infrastructure to put into place to support the people you serve. There is lots of expertise in this room and around the world to help with this. But the thing I want to highlight is how important you are and will be to each other. You can support one another in your planning by sharing ideas, risks, lessons learned, successes. That is why these Livable Cities Labs take place every 2 months and why so many of you I hear come back again and again. It seems they have become a genuine community of practice, a space where city leaders, partners, and practitioners can learn from one another in real time. And I know this is one set of themes. There are others that you cover as well, but just know that your commitment to showing up, contributing, and learning is what makes these discussions so valuable. I would say too, I have seen this time and time again. In late 2012, as Anna mentioned, I was asked by President Obama to lead an interagency task force focused on the long-term recovery of the New York and New Jersey region following Hurricane Sandy. There were lots of things to say about that experience, but one of the things I remember when I was preparing for this talk, I just popped into my mind. I traveled the region extensively, and every time I spoke to mayors, no matter how big their community or how small, there might be an oceanfront community with, very, very small number of people, or big cities like New York or Newark. Everybody said, "What do I do? What do I do?" And the most amazing thing happened. We had mayors from the United States Gulf Coast. So you may remember that Hurricane Katrina had hit New Orleans, Louisiana, Mississippi in 2005. The mayors from along that coast came on their own dime, on their own expense in 2012 to the Northeast to help the counterparts get through the moment right after the storm. It was really special. They kind of wanted to pay it forward. They wanted to offer to be helpful in ways that other people had been for them. And this was the genesis of another project we launched following Hurricane Sandy, which was the Rockefeller Foundation's creation of 100 Resilient Cities, which placed resilience officers in communities across the U.S. to help communities build that longer term capacity. And this produced many, many resilience actions, over 1,800 estimated studies sort of looked at the work over time and assessed the impact. And I think there were really concrete actions that came out of this, as well as over $650 million in additional public and private investment. So I know that also Metro Manila was one of the participating cities in that effort. All of this is to say that how you work together and how you relate to each other is a really, really, really important part of that preparation and planning. Second, resilience isn't just about the response to a crisis. It is also making sure you have the capacity to return to some kind of new normalcy as soon as possible. New York City learned a lot from Hurricane Sandy, including how to prepare for the next storm. This meant building the expertise internal to city and state government that allowed for the work to be done differently the next time. And this work is now happening across the US. I currently serve on the board of the American Flood Coalition. It's a nonprofit that works in different states across the US, particularly in the American South. They're facing high flood risks. So they focus in particular on flooding as the hazard. AFC, as it's called, works to build the capacity of those governments to respond when disaster strikes. So one example that I'm particularly proud of is in Louisiana, Minnesota, and Texas, the American Flood Coalition launched an effort called Building Resilience from the Watershed Up. So the watershed is the entire part of a region where water kind of comes into lakes or oceans. And so when you have flooding, you have to look at the whole, as I'm sure you know, look at the whole ecosystem. And that is about working across different bodies of government, right? So this effort that the American Flood Coalition launched helped governments create regional watershed bodies to unite counties, cities, lots of agencies, and that this then meant that you're building capacity before disasters, you have coordinated funding after. It also allowed for the investment in shared infrastructure like drainage, flood walls, et cetera, but also meant that there's a plan for keeping schools, transportation, utilities running, right? Because they're all in that watershed. Last thing I'll say about the American Flood Coalition is it is working with many, many kinds of communities. I'm sure you're well aware of the polarization in the US right now. And so I'm very proud to be part of an organization that's working with small communities, large communities, communities in what we call red states, blue states, right? So the idea that this is a problem that everybody is facing, and the American Flood Coalition is working to do that across many different lines. So let's keep moving around that wheel. So making sure that third insight, building plans that drive outcomes. So you respond to a crisis, you move past it, or maybe you get back to that new normal. Now you need a plan for longer term recovery. How do you ensure that that is what works? And this is something we do a lot of at Delivery Associates in different contexts. And it's part of why I've joined the firm, is I really think this is the heart of the work. You need a plan, but not just any plan. We used to say in the US government, a plan beats no plan, but that's only part of the truth. You need a good plan. You need a plan that drives outcomes, and is connected to the right team, the right routines, the right capacity to deliver on those outcomes. I want to share two examples. I've talked a bunch already about Hurricane Sandy. That's not represented in these slides, these pictures, but let me just tell you a little bit more about that, and then we'll talk about the more recent example of the Treasury Department. We created a delivery unit on that Hurricane Sandy task force that developed a plan to figure out how to spend the $60 billion that Congress had appropriated for all of the communities that were impacted by Hurricane Sandy. It's across 17 different federal agencies, 10 different states, and then countless towns and counties. And we created a plan that was focused on those long-term outcomes. In the past, it was like, oh, one agency would do this, another agency would do that. What we did was really use that delivery unit to create a unifying vision and then an accountability structure to ensure that the agencies remain on track. It was the first time this was done, and it was found to have been very successful across a variety of metrics, independently evaluated by Rand Corporation and others. And so I think that is a good example of, you have the money, you have the solution in the short term, but how in the long term do you drive those outcomes? And so I think New York and New Jersey and Connecticut and other states in the region are more resilient because of those investments and the way that they were made. The second example is in 2023, I was asked by President Biden to drive implementation of the Inflation Reduction Act at the US Department of Treasury. So this was, at the time, the largest piece of climate legislation that had passed. There's lots of different pieces of it, but the Treasury Department was responsible for really two things: a set of tax incentive related to the clean energy transition in the US, and then an investment in the tax administration's agency that we have called the IRS. So very complex, diverse project with a lot of different goals in one piece of legislation. So I created another delivery unit within Treasury focused on implementing. And of course, we had plans. We had what we called, and this is, I realize a lot of government speak, the strategic operating plan for the Internal Revenue Service. We had a direct file plan. We had all of these plans. And actually, what we did was create the same thing I was describing a few minutes ago in Hurricane Sandy. It's a plan with a set of outcomes, resources, and just like we did with Hurricane Sandy, we actually held ourselves publicly accountable. So we released these plans. This may or may not be the right answer for all of you, but the point is you create the accountability in a variety of ways. And we used it with the Inflation Reduction Act to drive metrics around how people experienced the tax system, how they filed their taxes, how quickly they got their money back. All of those things were metrics that we were using in that delivery unit that I created there. So you get the idea. The bottom line is you need to develop a plan that drives outcomes over the long term and the delivery capacity to do this for both the short and the long term. So next I want to talk about this fourth insight, the partnering for outcomes. So this is a lot. This is really hard, but you don't have to do it alone. You shouldn't. Another big part of the work to drive long-term outcomes is about partnering with others. And I would call out different sectors, not just government. So the private sector, philanthropy, and the public sector all need to work together. So I'll just spend a minute on each sector and my experience with them. So philanthropy, lots to say there, but the quick headline is less than 10% of total climate finance supports adaptation, right? So there's not necessarily a market for the kind of work that we're talking about here today that needs to happen. And many developing countries face an annual shortfall of 359 billion in meeting their adaptation needs. This is a recent report by an organization called ClimateWorks in the US. But point is, there's a big gap between the need, the financing that's available, and what can happen. And I think this is a critical place that philanthropy can and should play to catalyze innovation, generate evidence, support mechanisms that de-risk investments that the private sector then can submit to. And I'll give one example. We worked very closely with Bloomberg Philanthropies through what is called the Global Mayors Challenge. In particular, we worked with a number of Philippine cities to conceptualize, develop, and implement innovation that was focused on local resilience. And Pasig City, forgive me, my pronunciation is not correct. We supported the City Environment and Natural Resources Office in shaping the concept for a floating park system that integrates climate adaptation, flood management, and public space design. And this was an interesting example where you have innovative, interesting, what my kids would call cool infrastructure, but it enhances community well-being, but also really meaningfully addresses environmental risk. In Naga City, the team on the Global Mayors Challenge worked with the City Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office to refine the future-proofing Naga concept, which was a community-led model for preparedness and local planning, to promote collaboration, data-driven decision-making, et cetera. So across the communities in the Philippines and then elsewhere in the globe, this partnership between Bloomberg Philanthropies, Delivery Associates, and others demonstrates how philanthropy can catalyze resilience and innovation in very, very meaningful ways. So don't lose hope. I do think philanthropy has a key role to play here. But as we know, the problem is big, needs a lot of money. And so I just want to lift up another critical player, which is the financial markets. There are lots of emerging tools that support the kinds of investments that communities facing natural disasters need. There's an innovation that has emerged called, you may be familiar with catastrophe bonds or CAT bonds. The state of North Carolina in the US has just secured bond financing. That's a new kind of CAT bond that has disaster recovery funding and adaptation and resilience funding built in to the payout structure. Very excited about that. Happy to share more information about this after the conversation today. And then also the nation of Jamaica, which you probably know just faced a terrible storm, Hurricane Melissa, like a couple months ago, I guess maybe 6 weeks, just got $150 million payout of the World Bank CAT bond. So these tools are starting to emerge and starting to, and certainly there's a ways to go, but hopefully will be critical for supporting places like the Philippines. And then last but not least, The NGO sector supports resilience and recovery as well. I worked for a large national nonprofit called Enterprise Community Partners. We focus on affordable housing, but increasingly during my time there, resilience became more and more important. So we worked in Puerto Rico following Hurricanes Irma and Maria and developed a set of tools, including technical guides to help building owners rebuild in a way that allowed the building code, even though it hadn't been updated or adapted very quickly, but allowed them to use the best techniques to rebuild in the most resilient way. So things like that. So last but not least, the fifth insight here, and I think I'm sure we'll be talking a lot about this today, leadership resilience. I've been lucky enough to work on many of these issues for a long time and with many leaders. And fundamentally, the technical answers are important, the tools are important, the delivery support is important, but recovery depends on building systems that can outlast leaders. You do need a leader to make those investments, but hopefully that he or she can do that in a way that then lasts for a long time. I was lucky enough to work for Mayor Michael Bloomberg, and I worked on a Plan YC, was a plan for the long-term sustainability of New York. And we did this, I was pregnant with my first child who is now in college. So that was 18 years ago, and I think it's still paying enormous dividends. He created a vision for the city that would and could outlast the mayor, created a plan for how each neighborhood needed to be resilient, how to respond to storms. It helped when Sandy hit. And when I go to New York City, I see evidence of that work everywhere in terms of how construction is being undertaken, where buildings are sited, where people gather, et cetera. And that kind of leadership is essential. Many of you are building or have built that, and we look forward to supporting that however we can. So I'm going to wrap up just because this is, I know, a long morning and there's lots to say, but hopefully these insights are useful food for thought as you start. And I will now turn it back to Josh, I believe. Thank you very much for your attention and time. I look forward to talking more throughout the morning.
Thank you so much, Laurel. And there will be an opportunity for any questions as part of the panel later on this morning. I believe you can feed in questions through the Zoom link or through Facebook Live as well. Laurel, I really appreciate, thank you so much for sharing some of those reflections and your experiences. One of, I guess, the thing that really permeated throughout your presentation, it's come up time and time again, this sense and this idea of collaboration and partnering together. Now, as we move into our panel presentations, we'll see some of these principles brought to life, and that's starting with a critical component of resilience, which is connectivity. So again, reflecting back to this idea of collaboration, of partnership, having that connectivity and the ability to connect with one another is at the heart of disaster resilience. In a crisis, communication is a lifeline. It's how families check in on one another, how emergency services coordinate, how critical information reaches those in need. When networks go down, communities are not just disconnected, they are endangered. So how do we ensure that this vital infrastructure holds strong when it matters most? So it's my privilege to introduce our first speaker, a leader at the forefront of this mission. Please welcome Jayme Maniti, Senior Manager, Head of Operational Risk Management at Globe Telecom, presenting on behalf of Ryan Patu, who is also in the room with us today, but unfortunately cannot present.
Good morning to our valued partners from different local government unit, disaster risk reduction and management offices, and to my co-speakers, Ms. Anna Needs and Ms. Laurel Blatchford from Delivery Associates, Mr. Miguel Fernandez from ACEN, Director Felino Castro from the Department of Education, Ms. Veronica Hitosis from the League of Cities of the Philippines, and Mr. Reginald Lorico, representing Honorable Mayor Jose Ivan Dayan Agda of Borongan City. We'd also like to thank our partners for this event, Liveable Cities Philippines, led by Mr. Guillermo Luz, for bringing us all together for this crucial conversation. Good morning, I am Jayme Maniti from Globe Telecom Operational Risk Management. Today, we want to share how Globe is creating a resilient network for a safer and more sustainable Philippines. In your line of work, you are at the forefront of every emergency. And we believe that by working together, we can strengthen our nation's response to any crisis. Our goal is not just to provide service. Our goal is not just to be a service provider, but a reliable partner in building resilient communities. Before we dive into the technical details, let me anchor our conversation in our purpose. We treat people right to create a globe of good. This isn't just a corporate jargon. For you, our LGU partners, this means our commitment to sustainability and resilience is baked into our core operations and not just a side project. Our resilience strategy is framed by our sustainability framework. Our anchor to sustainability is the intersection of climate resilience and operational resilience. To us, a green network is a resilient network. Climate actions means reducing our carbon footprint, but for operational teams, it means creating a decentralized, less vulnerable network. As a testament to this, Globe is the first Philippine publicly listed company with approved net zero targets. We are just not proactive, but we are building for the future of today. Our guiding principle is simple. We focus being proactive, not reactive. Our process is built on strategic foresight and involves a three-step process. First, we identify threats through deep scenario analysis. Second, after threat identification, we assess the impact on communities and develop mitigation strategies to ensure uninterrupted service in the communities that we serve. This is where physical hardening is critical. This is where the physical investment happens. We are fortifying our assets against the extreme realities of the Philippines. So how do we build a resilient network? As you can see, we do tower redesign and retrofitting. We are building towers to withstand winds of up to 340 km per hour or kph, exceeding the current standard. We also have asset protection. As you can see on the second picture, we have installed elevated base pads in sites where flooding is prevalent. We factor in flooding, liquefaction, and tsunamis in every tower design. We also have backup power. Every critical site is equipped with backup generators. And finally, for manpower, we have empowered manpower. Our engineers are trained not just in new technologies, but also in disaster recovery methods, including business continuity management. Infrastructure hardening is essential. But mobility is also critical when our sites fail. We have different pre-positioned solutions ready for deployment in partnership with your offices. We have cell site on wheels, and tow or tower on wheels, Both provides wide, high-capacity coverage in large areas. They are used for rapid deployment in isolated areas. We also have the CALF, or the cell site at less footprint, which only requires minimal space and power. And most importantly, the emergency base stations, which allows any mobile phone to connect to our emergency network, providing an immediate channel for communications with responders via an SMS access code. These are the tools that we bring to your operational table immediately post-disaster. Just go back. Next slide. One more slide. Forward, sorry. Going back, I'm sorry, yeah, I think. Oh, the 7th slide. Okay. Moving forward, we have shown you different solutions that we use during, sorry. For a while, yeah, I was lost. Going back, we have shown you the different solutions that we use during disaster. However, we have a concept of Sustain+Ability. This is our shift to renewable energy, or RE, which is part of Globe's resilience strategy. So think about it. During a massive typhoon, the grid is often the first thing to fail. By moving the decentralized power to sources like solar or green solutions, our sites are less dependent on a single vulnerable grid. An energy-efficient network is inherently more robust and has a much longer uptime during extended power interruptions. Let's remember, sustainability is resilience in action. Bringing uninterrupted service to our communities during disasters means that we can link responders to the communities they serve. Next slide, please. In critical immediate period, communication is paramount. We work closely with the NDRRMC to deploy geo-targeted SMS, warnings, and cell broadcasts. This is a powerful life-saving tool that ensures targeted messaging to threatened communities. Beyond warnings, we offer digital systems like Load Up for convenient distribution of prepaid load, ensuring responders and affected citizens can maintain contact, and M360 for emergency alerts and notifications, giving you the communication channels as needed to guide your residents through evacuation and safety protocols. One of our most powerful partnerships tools that we support is the DISHA, or Data Insights for Social and Humanitarian Action. This tool uses aggregated, anonymized data on population movement to give you a near real-time view of what is happening on the ground. You can literally understand real-life human displacement before and after a typhoon. This empowers your DRRM offices to, number one, confirm movement into designated evacuation areas, identify any anticipated displacements. This can also answer the question, why did people go there? Number two is, as a result, your offices can optimize resource allocation for response and recovery activities. This data-driven approach moves recovery from guesswork to precision, backed by strategy and analytics. When the dust settles, our focus shifts to support and rapid restoration. Our teams prioritizes the immediate restoration of infrastructure and pre-positioning of libreng tawag and libreng charging stations to ensure that connectivity remains available even without commercial power. Our employee volunteerisms and community empowerment through Globe Rewards, in partnership with entities like Ayala Foundation and DSWD, ensures that our support extends beyond signals to tangible relief for the people in your care. In Globe, we don't do this for awards, but these recognitions, from being Philippines' most sustainable brand to achieving a AA MSCI ESG rating, reflects the rigor and scale of our commitment to governance, social impact, and climate resilience. This confirms that you are partnering with an organization whose commitment is globally recognized and validated. We have shown you our blueprint, a proactive approach, fortified infrastructure, mobile response solutions, and powerful data insights like DISHA. But a blueprint is only as effective as the hands that execute it. The real power comes from partnership. Our call to action today is simple. Let us formalize and strengthen the mechanism for collaboration between your cities. As a final note, together, we can ensure that when the next disaster comes, the communication backbone of your community remains strong. With Globe, let's go forward together. Thank you and have a great day ahead.
Jayme, thank you so much. There was one line that really resonated with me. We provide relief beyond the signals to help community. And what I think I really loved about the insights that you shared, you called out the technical aspects, the rigor, right? When it comes to supporting cities and delivering for cities in times of crisis. But is very clearly coupled with a sense of empathy and connecting with community, especially as you talk through the post-disaster relief support that you provide. I'd just like to remind everyone again, I'll keep reminding you, that if you have any questions, please feel free to use the Q&A box in the Zoom link or the comment section of the Facebook Live so we can answer them during the panel discussion later. I'm sure there are many questions for Jayme, and Jayme, thank you so much. And we're excited to hear from you a bit more later as part of the panel. So we heard about connectivity, it being fundamental, absolutely critical when it comes to preparing for disasters, responding to disasters, and post-disaster relief. But it depends on another resource, and that's power. So the resilience of our energy grid is a matter of public safety. Jayme, you touched on this as well. And this brings us to our next critical question. How can we build energy systems that are robust enough to power through a disaster and then to bounce back even faster? So it's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Miguel Fernandez, Senior Vice President and Head of Operations at ACEN. He's here to discuss powering through the storm, renewable energy and resilient systems. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Miguel Fernandez. Thank you.
Hello, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
To all the guests, our speakers, all those who are online, good morning to you all. My presentation is basically into two main parts. So, yes, we also want to talk about how we are preparing and responding to disaster. But firstly, from our company philosophy, we also believe that the transition to renewable energy, to cleaner energy sources is instrumental in preventing these disasters in the first place. So let me walk you through first about ACEN or AC Energy. So, oops, too much. Wait, one more slide. It's hanging there. Okay. ACEN, it might not be known for everyone because we recently rebranded. So before, we were known as AC Energy, as the energy arm of the Ayala Group, together with our colleagues in Globe as Force on the telecom side. So for those who didn't know, ACEN is one of the now major companies within the Ayala Group, together with Ayala Land, BPI, and Globe, and other emerging businesses of Ayala Corporation. Let me tell you about my first story of how we got here. So where did we start? So I mentioned that we want to transition to clean energy, but in the beginning, we were a different organization. ACEN, when Ayala Group was looking at what new businesses to build 15 years ago, back in before 2010, we were looking at what's the next source of growth for the Ayala Group. We were looking at power as one of those that could potentially be scaled up. But during that time, in the early 2010s, the issue in the Philippines is a lack of energy in general. So even though we wanted at the beginning to be already renewable, clean energy, at that time, the cost of energy from renewable energy is quite prohibitive, and it's not that easy to scale. So at the beginning, our story is really focused on building capacity, but at that time, we were constrained, and so we were building thermal energy. So as you can see, from 2011 to 2015, we were able to reach 1 gigawatt of capacity. But unfortunately, at that time, majority of that is still with thermal. But we pivoted. So starting 2016, we said we want to change things. At that time, we thought that when we were looking at far future already, we think that's already ripe to be able to transition to renewable energy because we're seeing the trends already in energy prices. We're seeing already the trends in the cost of putting up these power plants to be going down and be able to scale up. So we pivoted. There's two things that we pivoted on. Firstly, we transitioned from thermal to renewables, and that's two parts also. One is we built new renewables, but we were also letting go. We were also closing or selling off our thermal assets. The other part that we realized is that the Philippines' impact in terms of the total global renewable energy is not going to be that big. While we want to scale up, of course, we're a Filipino company, first and foremost. We need to be able to reach the scale that we need. We need to grow also. That's why we started growing regionally by going to different countries. And I'm happy to say, as of today, for 2025, we've already fully transitioned to full 100% renewable energy on a 7 gigawatt portfolio. And this is just an overview of where we are. So, of course, most of you probably know that ACEN, AC Energy is a Filipino company. Of course, the Philippines is still our biggest market with about 2.4 gigawatts of energy power. But we're also quite big. We have several 1 gigawatt markets already, in particular Vietnam, Australia, and India. And we're continuing to grow this. Our aspiration is to go beyond 20 gigawatts in the next 5 to 10 years. So we want to keep on leapfrogging. And as you've seen from our history, from 0 to 7 gigawatts in 15 years, we think that we have the capacity to do so, to continue to expand. But let me switch gears. I want to focus now on the Philippines because this is what's pertinent to our discussion today. So as mentioned earlier, about 2.4 gigawatts. In terms of footprint, we are very well dispersed. So we have plants all the way from the very tip of the Philippines in Ilocos, with our wind farms in Pagudpud, in Ilocos Norte, our solar farm in Cagayan, all the way south to the Visayas, where we have several solar and wind farms in Negros and Guimaras. and then of course many different plants in between. So I want to emphasize this before I go to the next part, because ACEN is a very wide footprint, right? We're not just a handful of big chunky assets. We are actually quite dispersed, especially because of the nature of renewables being, you can't do 1 gigawatt renewables in one site and all in one go. It's not easy. It's possible, but it's not easy to do so, especially in a land-constrained country like the Philippines. But also has an importance in how we as ACEN are able to partner with local communities and local governments, because we have a very wide footprint. And that's what I want to focus on next. And then just to recap, before we move to that, we are aligned together with the Ayala Group to reach net zero, the greenhouse gases by 2050. And at least our internal guide is to try to challenge the 1.5 centigrade pathway. So the most aggressive pathway. And one of the things that we did is, and mentioned earlier, is we transitioned out of our coal. So in 2021, one of the landmark transactions we did was to do an energy transition mechanism where we are going to do an early retirement of our last coal plant, the South Luzon Thermal Energy Corp, by 2040, and we're currently trying to do plans to actually shorten that even further, if we can, to maybe at least 2030 at the most. So let me now switch gears to disaster preparedness and planning. Maybe before I go through this one, let me preface something, so just to make sure that we are aligned. No? So generation companies, we generate the power, we create the power, but we do not distribute the power. As you know, there are multiple stakeholders also in the energy grid. There's transmission, the national grid, and there's distribution utilities, which are the ones that are serving your communities. So I want to preface that even though we do as an organization try to find a way to make sure that we remain resilient and we're able prepared, we cannot, at the level of the communities, we might not be able to restore power because that's beyond our capability. That's really with your distribution utility. So even if we have power, we cannot export it because the national grid is down, or your DUs are not able to have, they have their own damage, so they have to restore. We do help. I will explain later what we do to help our local communities to respond to that. But I want to preface that. So let me start this with a story of how we changed in terms of our mindset in terms of disaster preparation. A few years ago, I'm sure a lot of you here are familiar with the Typhoon Odette that hit a large swath of the Philippines, from Mindanao to the Visayas and even some parts of Luzon. But our most affected group was our Visayas team, which was badly hit, right? It's really the eye of the storm went through that region. And at that time, our maturity in terms of disaster preparation is still very nascent. So we had a lot of problems. Obviously, power outages in the Visayas. We have a lot of employees. We don't know where they are. Telecoms were down, unfortunately, at that time. And we couldn't reach people. And we don't know where people are. And obviously, the banks are offline, or even our BPI was offline. So a lot of it has to be done cash, right? There's no fuel, there's no water, there's no food, right? So with that, we learned we have to change. That change, a pivot internally, that we cannot let something like that happen again and we'll be caught unawares. So we changed our strategy. So yes, in the immediate response, we ended up having to deliver goods and essential supplies. We provided financial assistance and support through cash transactions and send satellite phones. I mean, what we actually did at this time is we had to using helicopters. Using the group, Ayala Group, we borrowed helicopters from Ayala Corporation. We bought all the relief goods from Manila. We brought it to the different sites. And not just goods, even money. I mean, literally, someone had to bring bags of money because the only way we can help our local community is to start money going again. And we don't have money at the sites because the ATMs are down, the banks are down. So we had to literally, physically move cash from Manila to our sites. But basically what we want, it's a change in mindset now and a change of how we approach risk, disaster preparation. So we changed the way we do things. So this is the system that we are using. It's called an incident management system. So in the past, typically the way we'll do it is we have different sites, they have their own preparations. We will provide some assistance if we think at the head office level, but it's not organized. It's ad hoc, as needed, when we need it. We expect our sites to be the one to be self-sufficient. But we've changed that. So we now tiered it into 3 layers, a level 1, a level 2, and level 3. Level 1 is intended to be at the most local level, at the site level. We further expanded this. In the past, we're only doing it, let's say, at per plant site. So we have, like I mentioned earlier, about 22 sites. But we've also now changed it into a regional level. So there will be a group in Ilocos, in the North group. There will be a Central Luzon group, a South Luzon group, and then a Visayas group. So in the past, if you have a small plant with a few people, you have very few resources you can mobilize. But within the region, suddenly you have a whole lot more people that you can tap. And even those that are neighboring, for example, in Central Luzon and South Luzon, we are able to deploy people from one side to the other. And only if we breach that, if we are unable to support one another from our regions, from our local sites, we also prepare a level 2. So this is an escalation. So, and what we did was that the incident management team is not just one person. We built in resiliency into that, because what if a person gets sick? What if a person is not available? We have a team, a roster actually, that rotates every week, that fills up the incident management team, so that whenever there's a disaster, even if I'm not available, even if I'm the head of operations, I know someone from my team will be able to take over and take the lead and provide assistance to our level 1 teams. And then finally, at the level 3, obviously these are the bigger disasters, and we really have to mobilize group-wide resources, and not just ACEN. It's really going to be an Ayala group level kind of response already. And obviously at that level, we'll be working with national government, local governments, and other stakeholders to mobilize bigger resources. But the idea is that between level 1 and 2, as much as possible, we're able to contain it at our level, and we'll be able to respond at our level. Just to give you an idea, so the way that we did it is, we have several tiers of when we're going to tap different levels. Okay, so green and blue are basically the smallest incidents that can easily be handled at their site. When you get to yellow, orange, and red, these are progressively more complex and bigger disasters that we need to respond to. So for example, yellow would be something like a typhoon signal 1 to 2, and then a orange would be 3 to 4, and a red would be a 5. For earthquake, it will be something like magnitude of up to 5, up to yellow, 6 to 7 goes to orange, 8 and above already goes to red. So it just gives you an idea. It's already systemized. We have a playbook. If this is what happens, this is where we're going to activate. If this happens, we're going to activate. Which resource we're going to have. So different levels allows us to activate different levels of resources that we can tap, including funds. Emergency funds are always available, so that we can deploy it as soon as possible without encumbrance. So without going to the normal corporate bureaucracy and process, we are able to tap these and deploy these resources faster. So now I want to move to what we actually do during disasters. So I have many cases, but I want to highlight a few things that we do. So for example, in the most recent, next slide please, incidents just of this past month, this is the earthquake in Cebu, the 6.9 magnitude Cebu earthquake, and then the recent typhoons Nino in Owan, which hit us about 2-3 weeks ago. So in this case, as you can see in the Cebu earthquake, this one is a pretty large earthquake. So we have to mobilize resources, not just within our group within the Visayas. You have to tap our resources within corporate. Actually, in this case, ACEN also has a retail energy arm, so we sell energy to large customers. We were able to tap our large customers who said, we want to help you. So they help us put together relief packages and distribute that also to the affected victims of that earthquake. And then on the typhoon, we were able to mobilize the resources at the regional level so that we were able to get food and drinks and other resources to the affected families. Total of 7,000, almost 18,000 individuals were reached by mobilizing resources at the regional level. So we're able to leverage more our scale. Next slide, please. And then during the typhoon itself, actually, some of our sites acts as evacuation centers. For example, in Ilocos, where it's a bit more remote, so we allow people to enter actually our sites and shelter in place within our sites. And then, of course, we align with the local LGU for both pre-disaster and during the disaster response plans and readiness. Next slide, please. And then post-disaster, we also mobilize our resources. So, for example, in some of our sites, we have very heavy equipment. If we need to do road clearing, we need to remove debris. We have our resources. In other instances, for example, wildfire situations, we also have our own forestry team that can help provide wildfire support for different communities and LGUs. And then lastly, just want to highlight a recent case study that we did. So in Ilocos, so after Typhoon Uwan, I'm not sure if people noticed that when it passed through Santa Luzon, it turned north, it veered north going to Taiwan. So most of the Philippines at the time were already okay. But the problem was when it was still traversing the West Philippine Sea going to Taiwan, it was bringing a lot of rain and water to the west coast of the Philippines. So what happened during this time was the electric lines going from our wind farms going to Lawag, which is the capital of Ilocos Norte, it shorted. Basically, there was a lot of sea mist hitting the lines, and it triggered a brownout in that area. And in this case, this is a good example of how we leverage our network with the local government and local communities, because together with the local DU plus the different LGUs, they were able to mobilize several man-lift and help of manpower to be able to restore the power as soon as possible. So again, this is how we as ACEN work, right? We work with our local communities, we work with our LGUs, we work with our other stakeholder partners. So that's basically it. It's a small snippet of what we do as ACEN and how we prepare and how we respond to disasters. And I hope you learned some of things from us today. Thank you.
Miguel, thank you so much. I think there are so many lessons to be learned from ACEN and your presentation across preparedness, response, recovery in times of disaster. But one lesson in particular that I think I just wanted to call out, and that is the importance of mindset. You mentioned the term mindset, and it's such an important kind of facet of effective delivery in any kind of situation, specifically around Typhoon Odette. And there was this willingness to confront reality about things weren't necessarily working as well as they could, and the willingness to adapt and refine your approach so that it actually would deliver meaningful outcomes for community. We don't see that, very often. Leadership and organizations genuinely confronting reality in that way and kind of taking it as it is. So thank you so much for sharing your presentation and your insights. So this conversation about resilient infrastructure leads us to what is probably one of our most important community institutions, and that's our schools. In a disaster, they become more than just places of learning. They transform into centers of hope, shelter, and recovery. How does our education system ensure that learning not only continues through crisis, but they actually become pillars of community strength? So we're now honored to hear from a leader whose entire career has been dedicated to this mission. Please welcome Director Ninoy Castro of the Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Service at the Department of Education. Director Ninoy has over 25 years of experience in disaster risk reduction and resilient ICT systems. He brings a unique and critical perspective. His work ensures our schools can serve as safe havens and keep the light of learning alive, even in the most challenging times. So to present on education in emergencies, keeping learning alive during disasters, please let's welcome Director Ninoy.
Thank you, Josh, and good morning, everyone. To our good friends on site and online. It's a pleasure for the DepEd to be able to share with you our state, especially we represent a quarter of the Philippine population. The education sector covers around 27 million learners all over the country, being also one of the biggest departments in the Philippine government. So allow me to share with you some of this information. I just want to also inform you about my role. I'm currently the director of the Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Service. We're responsible to establish disaster risk reduction and climate adaptation mechanisms that prepare, respond, and protect and build resilience to all of our DepEd learners and the school communities in a changing climate. So this is the current milieu. We experience both natural, human-induced, and climatic hazards. And allow me to share with you a couple of these. Next slide. So this is an overemphasis of what's happening. These are the current 2025 photos of schools. You would not even imagine that these are schools, whether they are damaged by hydromet hazards, typhoons, flooding. We had 2 earthquakes this year, and we just finished off with Verdena, and there's an upcoming weather system to be called Wilma. So we are now completing the alphabet and 2 earthquakes for 2025. So it's really disrupting the learning of our children on site in schools. Okay? So in the last weather system, just to share with you, these are the areas that were at risk and the actual schools that were affected. Remember 4 days of class suspensions? There's a lot of things that children do in a 4-day, whether they can study their modules or they can go to other places. But definitely, at a certain point, learning stops. So what we do at the DepEd, we have some sort of a protocol that every time 3 days for slow onset hazards, we immediately send guidance to all of our schools. Primarily along the 3 lines. Number 1, to collaborate with local government units and DRR councils to ensure there are emergency response preparedness in place. And there are preventive class suspensions being implemented. So the class suspensions, the class disruptions due to class suspensions is part of the preparedness actions to limit the exposure of our children to these hazards. Second, we activate our school disaster risk reduction and management teams. And again, a plan, a contingency plan, whether it's for typhoons, it's for earthquakes, and other hazards. Okay? Of course, there's a lot of exposure when it comes to the materials, and I will show you later the extent of damage. Okay? So this is our 2025 figure, fresh off the DepEd. For school year 2025-2026, we're not even done with the 2026. It has already affected 16,000 schools. The total number of schools, by the way, of DepEd is about more than 47,000. So it's more than about 30% of schools affected already. So the effect differs whether it may be damaged, it may have suspended classes, or there were affected teachers. Okay, 194 school divisions, and in 996 cities and municipalities, in all provinces and all regions. So we have completed the entire cycle for 2025. We had our part, we had our share of experiencing all of this, directly affecting 2 million learners and 124,000 teachers. Okay? Do you think this figure is quite high? Okay. Let's see the losses. Okay, we have estimated, again, you cannot manage if you cannot measure. So, beginning 2025, we've measured all the damaged schools, and it has reached already 13,355, whether they have a minor damaged classroom, a major damaged classroom, or a totally demolished classroom because of strong winds, an earthquake, and the other hazards. It damaged more than 6,000 wash facilities. And I think wash is very important in schools. Water, sanitation, and hygiene. Damaging furniture, the desks of these children, learning materials, whether it's a module or a textbook, and IT equipment that supposedly should be helping our learners to be digitally ready in this day and age. 43.5 billion. I think I heard a flood control project about 50 billion. So more or less. Okay, one project. So this is already for a year. Next slide, please. So the results are staggering. But in DepEd, we teach our schools and our learners to be aware of not only one hazard, but all the hazards that are present in their school. That is why we make these resources available, and you may scan it so that you'll be able to see each school and what specific hazards that's present in that specific school, whether it's hydromet, it's earthquake, even earthquake liquefaction, storm surges. We make it public and we make it available to our teachers so that they can start preparing their plans. Okay? And it's also open to the public because we firmly believe that the school community involves not only the teachers and the learners, but of course, the partners in this hall. Next slide. Apart from the technical knowledge, we try to simplify science. We understand education plays a pivotal role in delivering science, policy, and community. Okay? So the science behind storms, the science behind earthquakes, the science behind epidemics. And we use technologies such as a Plan Smart for Safe School. It's an automated contingency planning tool so that we can help our schools build up their plans. Okay? We also have simplified the technical engineering guides of creating safer learning facilities. We have a guidebook for them. And of course, we also build awareness on risks that may happen, but we cannot be predicted, just like earthquakes. We have a M7X Ready program certification for schools. Okay. So among others, next slide. As I've shown you, every time we suspend classes, we provide an alternative. And it has many options. It may be the manual modular distance learning. So this photo was taken immediately after the Bogo earthquake. So teachers preparing manual modules, offline modules, because there's no connectivity. There's no power. And we have to ensure learning continues, even in their respective residences. For cities that have invested in infrastructure, we have online distance learning, and we have a department order that's providing that guidance to the schools. So as long as you have internet, you have the devices, you can opt to use our online distance module or a blended mode. Whether it's a face-to-face with an IT assistant, that can also be used by our schools. Next slide. Again, stats for this year. These are the schools that implemented ADMs. So here you've seen the previous map. It's all over the country, but of course, all schools have an automatic measure. This is quite big. An average of 25 days of face-to-face, no face-to-face learning. And that is being filled up by our ADMs. The maximum, 41 days. You may have heard about it. It's about the earthquake scare that a lot of schools suspended classes. That's why the figures went up. But definitely, we also see how the ADMs were implemented during the year. Predominantly, it's modular because of the availability of these resources. Hopefully, our infrastructure and communications people should be able to at least see through the numbers. Next slide. We also introduced this year what we call the learning continuity spaces. We're sharing with you the design. You can scan this. And it's open source. If you want to adopt a school and provide one, that is being set up while the major infrastructure repairs are being done. So it's basically a pop-up school. Next slide. Complete. Not only the shelter, we have the learning kits, we have the connectivity, we have the wash already integrated. Okay. Next slide. So for this year, this is a startup. So we're starting off with 139, and we were able to get funding for another 1,300. But this is just government. But we're opening this opportunity to all stakeholders, whether from the private sector and the civil society, to pitch in. This is just a few points compared to the previous map that you've seen. We have a lot of work that needs to be done. And I believe that we are stronger when we work together. And through the education cluster for disaster response, and I think a lot of your organizations are members of this, we can make sure that the whole of nation is supporting the educations that require the assistance during emergencies. So we have a lot of work, but definitely I would like to highlight our work related to disaster response and early recovery. By the way, the membership of the cluster is open. Okay, next slide. So before I end, I would like to share with you our strategy. We are infusing, we are not integrating, because we don't want to add burdens to the learning of our children, whether it's science, math, or social studies. We just want to infuse concepts of DRR and CCA from kinder to grade 12. From prevention and mitigation, these are our marching orders to our schools. We have prepared guidebooks for them to help them plan. We have also engaged partners to carry out audits of their infrastructure so that next time we won't experience the same damages that we have experienced this year. For preparedness and anticipatory action, we're not only preparing the learners, but we are also extending it to their families, because their families compose the community of the school. And every time there is an earthquake, we don't want parents rushing to the school. They should be able to at least agree on a meeting place where they can meet. Okay? Public service continuity plans, yes. Contingency plans, yes. But again, if you don't practice the plan, and if it's not funded, it will not go far. We want to establish that muscle memory that every time there is a plan, we practice the routines until it becomes standard already. And if you're looking at the entire population of DepEd, that's 27 million, we are basically preparing a resilient future because it starts in education. We work with the community. We access the necessary funds from government, and we also, given this new age of partnership, it's no longer the Department of Public Works that will be building and repairing our schools. We are extending it to our partners, to the LGUs and the private sector. So, given our strategy, I would like us to, next slide, collaborate closely, because we believe by collaboration we ensure future-ready and resilient Filipinos for the next generation. Thank you very much.
Director Ninoy, thank you so much for your, we've got a bit of a video here. Thank you, Director Ninoy. It's truly mind-boggling hearing the national a national perspective on disaster preparedness and disaster resilience, specifically with schools, but the sheer scale of the challenge is just something that blew me away. And I think coupled with that, the opportunity for impact and genuinely transforming communities and lives is equally as the scale for that is of equal to the challenge. And the fact that you are ready to meet that challenge, obviously with all the partners that you've outlined earlier, is really heartening to see. So we've just heard a national perspective on disaster preparedness and disaster resilience. The ultimate test of any plan or system happens at a local level, as we all know. It is in our cities and municipalities where theory meets reality and where leadership is measured by the safety and well-being of every single citizen. So to bring all these threads together, we now have the privilege of hearing from someone who is living this challenge and delivering results every day. And that is Borongan City. So to share the city's lessons on governance and citizen participation for resilient cities, please join me in giving me a warm welcome to Sir Reginald James Lorico, Executive Assistant to the City Mayor of Borongan City, Eastern Samar.
Good morning, everyone. We are honored to be here. Mayor Diane Agda really wanted to present this himself, but something came up. But nonetheless, we hope for more areas of collaboration with Liveable Cities. Again, thank you to Liveable Cities Philippines for inviting us, and also our Delivery Associates who are with us, and my fellow speakers. Josh is right. The ultimate test for any preparedness when it comes to disaster is at the local level. And we live right in front of the front lines. If you, I believe not many are aware as to where Borongan is. So allow me to briefly mention where we're located at in the country. So we're at the central eastern seaboard of the Philippines. And usually we're the reference point when there's an incoming typhoon, especially around these months of the year. So we are a city of about 77,000, and we are the capital of Eastern Samar. So disaster pretty much is just every day for us, especially these months of the year. So it's imperative that we elect leaders who will really steer such communities to adaptation and resiliency. So allow me first to share with you some social services of the city. And I will tell you later on as to why am I sharing this at the start of my presentation. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have what we call as Libre Medicina. There are many cities that have such programs, but in Borongan City, this is institutionalized, meaning there is an ordinance that is backing it up. It is not just a program just for example, a term of a mayor, for example. So we started this, I think 3 years ago. And basically, we have a city pharmacy right at City Hall. When you enter the city, to your left is a city pharmacy. And it provides free medicines to all Boronganons, as we call ourselves. And we have satellite pharmacies in different barangays of the cities, all strategically placed so that we can be resilient and at the same time avoid people, going all the way to the downtown just to avail of those medicines. Because we aim to cut costs, when we provide such a service. And Borongan is almost as large as the National Capital Region. So imagine if you have someone from the other end going all the way to the city downtown just to claim for free medicine. So we did position satellite pharmacies. And next slide, please. Okay, we also have what we call Tukwag Agricultura, or roughly to push agriculture. Typhoons and agriculture don't seem to belong in the same same area, but Borongan again has a large land area and has a long coastline. And we still believe that by providing a stimulus to agriculture, we will be able to help create a more sustainable and resilient community. And later I'll share more about that. So it's a 100 million peso fund that allows anyone who wants to invest in agriculture to get capital at no interest, no collateral, and all of that. And again, it's also an ordinance. It's not just an executive order that will go away once the term of the mayor is over. And then next, we have what we call social pensions to our senior citizens. And we have student allowances. These are released to them every quarter. And this is a way to put money and have it circulate in the city. And with the students' allowances, they are everyone from high school to senior high to college students can avail of this allowance. So the only requisite is that they are from Borongan and they are studying within the Philippines. Okay, so next slide. Okay, we also have what we call Libre Sakay. So we have free bus rides for our beneficiaries such as students, senior citizens, PWDs, tourists, healthcare workers. So essentially these buses run through the whole national highway of the city of Borongan. We operate this 7 days a week. So you may have heard of such programs being implemented by other cities, but this one is really also another institutionalized program by the city of Borongan. Okay, next, please. Okay, so what's the reason why I shared all of these services? How does it aid in disaster resilience and recovery? Well, first, it ensures well-being of the citizens. When I mentioned Libre Medicina, how it plays around during times of disaster, we mobilize our city health office, and they get the medicines from the city pharmacy and distribute it before, during, and after any calamity or as the case may be. For Tukwag Agricultura, what is unique in the case of Borongan is that the relief goods that we provide to our citizens are sourced from the produce of these beneficiaries. So for example, we have fish caging right now, which is a growing industry in the city of bangus. And we also have a thriving swine industry. So when we identify that there is such a disaster, there is a disaster coming right at our area, we will already procure those produce if they can meet first the requirement, because we have to provide for over 21,000 families. So if the demand is met, we procure this, and that's the relief goods that we distribute to our citizens. So we noticed that some of the relief goods that are usually packaged are not actually healthy. and may, contribute to other problems that we also have to address during disasters. So we try our best to provide them with what is actually even produced in our city. And then, of course, for the social pension, goes without saying, people need cash when there are disasters. Sometimes we, as the ordinance provides, we have some leeway to release it early, especially when it will fall right near the expected typhoon, because we're really much prone to typhoons. So we believe in that we have to at least try to mobilize and disburse these benefits before a calamity. And then lastly, for Libre Sakay, we utilized this during a typhoon fairly recently, but thankfully we were not directly hit by the last three that came by. I think the most that we experience is strong winds. So for Libre Sakay, we use the buses to transport not only citizens of Borongan, but also from neighboring towns. So these services, again, the keyword is institutionalized, because normally when we hear news, of how government responds, it's something that they just pulled out of something, parang it's just a band-aid approach. So that is what, as a young city, we're trying to avoid. Borongan is still growing. Again, we're just 77,000. But with these institutionalized programs, we aim to lay the foundations right, to steer, the direction of the growth of our city correctly. So for, okay, let's skip a few slides, please. I think these are things that you're already familiar with. Next slide, please. Okay. It's nice that some of the things that were discussed earlier already resonate with us, and that is the value of partnership. For a small city like Borongan, we are happy and proud that there are many organizations that are partnering with us already. And personally, I think it's rooted in, number one, good governance. Number two, transparency. Number three, accountability. And these are key values that Mayor Agda has been pushing forward. And so we have Co-Philippines. Next slide, please. We're lucky as well that, that we have PDRF with us through Project Reach. And also, unfortunately, the Catholic Relief Services Climate Resilient Project Cities is already defunct due to the USAID funding issue. But these organizations were essential in equipping our CDRRMO personnel in terms of skills and in terms of equipments. And I was actually hoping to see Ms. Trina, but if you're online, we'd like to extend our regards to the PDRF. And also, we're also a Bloomberg City, actually, but through the Youth Climate Action Fund. We're one of two, the other being San Francisco, Cebu. And some of the projects that our youth actually implemented are related to DRR. So one of them implemented, what's the term for this? Keep forgetting this term. The markers for the flooding, yes, that's what they implemented in their own barangay that is actually not really flood prone, but they're just aware of the risks that come with living in our city. So next slide, please. So that okay. Yes, next slide, please. Okay, so since we live right at the front gate of typhoons in the Philippines, Actually, I have to commend the DRR of our city, who is actually very responsive. So we're already very used to this. That's why I think you don't really hear Borongan, despite the fact of our geographic disadvantage, that we're always, like being held, something like that. It's, government is supposed to be, which I believe and also the mayor believes, supposed to be boring. With the fact that people should not be always posting online, complaining about the lack of service delivery. So I think that's one of the things that that our DRR team has already assigned to me, that they've already matured as a department of the city. It's just that we're able to deliver it. And the numbers, the documentation will speak for it. And next, please. Okay. Yeah, we have some. I'd also like to share our thanks to national organizations that are located in the city. We have the Philippine Army with us, so they also help us. We recently changed battalion, so I think we now have the engineering battalion, and I think there's going to be a partnership with the DRR. We also have the Coast Guard and other related government agencies. So next slide, please. Okay. Okay. So yes. So for after disaster, for financial assistance through the AX program of CSWDO. I'd like to highlight this because this is one of the programs that is weaponized by politicians. For example, if this section here voted for me, of course, I will even roll the red carpet and offer you the AX program. In Borongan, we are very proud to say that it's for everybody. You can quote me on this. For AX program, it's for everybody. And then, okay, and we'd also like to put emphasis on construction of temporary and permanent housing, build back better. We believe in that, and we've been mobilizing our resources for this. And then next, please. Okay, I have 5 more minutes. Next slide. Okay, again, the value of partnership. I'd like to show the slide. Next. There, these are some of our partners. Next, please. And again, I'd like to really highlight PDRF and CRS Philippines. The impact that they have provided for us is immensely helpful. Not just because they got us here, but we never really thought that a small city such as ours would get the attention of such organizations. And one thing led to the other. CRS helped us get into Bloomberg. Unfortunately, we couldn't qualify to the Global Mayor's Challenge because our population is still too small. But at least we have the Youth Climate Action Fund. And just to go back there again, actually, the Bloomberg YCAF, or the Youth Climate Action Fund, is supposed to end this year. But so Borongan was already preparing legislation that we would continue on the program to provide such funding for our youth. It may be smaller, but we also intend to institutionalize it. But Bloomberg suddenly said that they're going to do a round 3. So we're going to shelve our proposed ordinance and apply for the 3rd round. Next. Okay, next. So, as I mentioned to you earlier, this is a case that is unique to Borongan. We prioritize buying local products, fresh products, and that's the relief package that we usually distribute. And we have a cold storage that can preserve the meat when necessary, but as much as possible, we try to provide it right away to our constituents. Okay, so moving forward, Borongan really looks forward into building more partnerships because, again, with our drive with transparency, good governance, I think we would make a good partner. And many organizations are already helping us. And growing up, I never really thought that Borongan will be able to share its story in such a forum. And I'm sure the mayor, if he was here, would also say that. But with the work that we've been pouring into, that is rooted again for genuine care to our citizens, I think there are a few things that we've been doing right. And the road is still long for us because that side of the country, as many of you are aware, has been neglected in the national agenda. We really had to fend for ourselves. So elections is critical and crucial in places such as ours, because if you have leadership that fails, all the more that the people will suffer. So with that, I end my presentation. Thank you for having me.
Reginald, thank you so much. And I mean, you described your city as relatively small, but wow, how much has been achieved over under the current administration of the mayor. So that's really, really amazing, amazing progress. I mean, one of the key takeaways for me was hearing you describe some of those services that have become institutionalized within your city and leveraging them to make sure the cities actually can withstand disasters as they come through. And I think it really speaks to this intersection, this nexus between disaster resilience and local innovation, being adaptive and flexible as well. So thank you. Okay, so we are now arriving at our panel discussion. So I would like just to welcome our distinguished speakers back in the front for our discussion. We have Laurel online. We have Jayme Maniti from Globe Telecom. We have, I believe, Lee Burgos from ACEN. We have Director Ninoy. And Reginald, sorry, you're gonna have to get back up and come down to the front here. So we're excited to open the floor to your questions. I know many of you may have had questions and thoughts or reflections throughout the morning. So here's the opportunity to make those known. So we'll be taking both in-person questions here in the room and also the virtual questions from our online participants. Please raise your hand if you want to be recognized or if you want to be called on. Type your question in the Zoom or Facebook chat if you haven't already. And I'd just like to introduce Bill to come over and help steer this critical conversation.
Okay, thank you very much. And this always gets us to one of the more interesting parts of the morning of the lab. But first of all, thank you so much to all our speakers and to Laura as well. Excellent presentations, a lot of good insights on what organizations are doing and more importantly, how people can partner up, because I think I'm getting a lot of questions reflecting the interest of the audience. So let me just open this up for questions. I can take some from the floor right now. I'll just ask you to introduce yourselves. and to whom you are addressing your question. But maybe let me start. We're going to speak for Globe.
I am Lee. I'll be speaking for ACEN.
For ACEN pala. Okay, for
Mig
ACEN.
sends his sincerest apology that he had to leave because he had to attend a board meeting.
Okay, okay.
He's asking.
I was going to line up the first question for ACEN, but hopefully we can get the answer out to you guys. The question was, how do they train their people for the incident command system? Maybe I'll pass it off to Ninoy because I know Ninoy has a lot of experience in incident command system. Before he joined DepEd, Ninoy was with DSWD for a number of years, and then with PDRF for a short while, and then back to DepEd. So Ninoy, maybe you can tell us a little bit. How do you train your people, and where do people get training for incident command system?
Very interesting. Incident command system is the on-scene crisis management. So if you get to meet your community disaster risk reduction office, that is standard. That's part of their standard. So if you want training, you just coordinate with them. They're more than willing to provide you with all of the guidance. To be very more specific, it's the Office of Civil Defense that sponsors this system. Although that is the ICS is adopted coming from the U.S. Forest Service, but there's a lot of localization that has been done, and that is basically the default system that we're using in the Philippines.
And Ninoy, what about specific to DepEd? You talked about the DART, your agile response teams. How did you train people, or more importantly, how did you train people on the ground at the school level?
So the concept of the agile response team. So there's a lot of notion that the teams should emanate from the institution. But if your school is in the community, it should be composite. It should composed of members of the PTA, members of the community DREAM, members of the school DRRM team, so that will be multisectoral, and you will have different skill sets. So what we do is we have guidance. We train all of these school DRRM teams to form, and definitely the interface is really the learner. So whether that's the parent or a PTA president or a community barangay kagawa that needs to be part of that team, all schools are required to set up one, because in case of a disaster, you may need assistance coming from the outside, not from the inside. Right. So you should that concept. Honestly, it has been that came from there's a lot of models already, but this community-led school community team would help the school to be and effectively provide the response interventions when it is needed.
Thanks. Yeah, so board, I'm glad that you see that you get down to the school level, because that's where the rubber meets the road, I guess, when it comes to preparedness and response. No, Mr. Lorico, I'm so impressed with Borongan, and I'm glad Trina was able to get you here with us. So progressive to think that let's institutionalize these programs by virtue of a ordinance. Whose idea was that? Was that the mayor's idea? And how many terms has the mayor been in office? Because most mayors, they only think of a program, but they don't think of let's pass this through the council. So was this the mayor's idea?
Yes, it has been the mayor's idea since day one. because he has been in government as a councilor and as a city administrator, and all the lessons, all the case studies, that's the culmination of all of it, by him pushing forward to institutionalize social services programs, such as that over 24% of our budget of 1.4 billion is dedicated solely for all those services that I mentioned. So that's well over the allocation that we have even for infrastructure, which is only at around 21 or 22%.
And how long has the mayor, how many terms has he served so far?
Okay, so this is, the mayor will be serving until 2028. It's his last term.
Okay, so at least we're assured that the program will continue because it's a matter of ordinance, and so it's therefore a matter of city budget already, right? Now, maybe you can kind of educate us in the room. Each LGU has a legally mandated amount to spend on DRRM, and it, I think, has a bit of a guidance on the allocation of how it should be spent. Maybe you could tell us how much you spend and what percentage it is of the budget.
Actually, I have my DRR person who can actually go in depth with that. Because me, I'm more dedicated to the social side of things.
Social side, okay.
So for a more in-depth answer, actually, I'd like to call on Mr. Jayme.
Sure, go ahead.
For DRR.
I think we get to pass the microphone over to you.
Thank you. I'm Jake Anta po, from DRR. So for the question of the budget for this year, we have 70 to 80, roughly 78, I think, for the 2025. So it is around 5% of the annual budget of the city. And we, as per RA 1121, 30% of that fund is intended for the quick response fund, and the 70% is more on the preparedness mitigations. That's it.
And that's a percentage of the city budget, and then it's annually spent. No? Okay, so for those of you around the country, that's more or less the spending that your city should plan for and implement and deliver on an annual basis in terms of preparedness, prevention, mitigation. No? In that, let's go to Globe. I mean, you've got a lot of services, and it's good to see all the different plans you put together for the cell site on wheels, tower on wheels, lower footprint, things like this. Are there other tools that you have that you can extend to the cities, in terms of, let's say, remote sensing, early warning systems, things like this that would help them in disaster, prevention and preparedness?
All right, hello. Yeah, thank you. But by the way, again, I'm Lee from ACEN. But Globe and ACEN are brothers because we belong to the same Ayala group of companies.
Yeah, I can probably answer.
Okay,
for Globe, there you are. Okay.
Yeah, some of our colleagues had to go back to the office for a meeting. So to answer your question, we're currently right now in the process of identifying the products and the digital tools that's fit for disaster recovery. So we've had some talks with a few LGUs in terms of coming up with a command center. It was mentioned earlier, one of the platforms in terms of determining the movement of the constituents of the people. So we're really aggressively pushing for that. So as we've known, as the years went by because of the changes in the weather systems, typhoons are getting stronger and stronger. So we really need to be prepared in terms of informing the people via our different platforms to inform them that the typhoon is coming. Please start evacuating. We need to be at this point in time. We really need to be more proactive rather than reactive. Hence, the need really for a command center, because communication during this difficult times is really key, so that all of our constituents will always be safe. As I think we've seen that it's always better to be over prepared rather than under prepared. So that's why we're hand-holding LGUs, and we're continuously working with them to be able to put up command centers across the entire country.
So I think an evacuation order must be given by the LGU, right? So that would mean that you've got to work, I suppose you'd have to work closely with the mayor to give the final instruction, and then you broadcast it through your M360.
That's correct. Yes. So we
service.
provide the platform to the LGU. So it's at their disposal on when to send communication as often as they can, as targeted as they can. Because that platform you mentioned, we can group them into cohorts. Those that live in these certain barangays which are most at risk, those that are living in a barangay further away, you guys can just stay put. No, you guys are still safe from where you are right now.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Lee, for ACEN, first of all, such an impressive journey over the last 10, 15 years to go from a predominantly thermal energy company to a 100% renewable company, and to go from a local company, a domestic company, to actually a global, an international company with projects, Australia, India, Vietnam, all these places. Is there an inherent advantage, let's say, to having a more resilient power supply using renewables? And since now I think at least large-scale consumers, we have a choice where to, what source to buy from, right? So if we opt for, to buy renewables from our grid, are we at an advantage or a disadvantage in terms of stability of our power supply?
Well, thank you for that question. With regards to stability of power source, it would really make sense to have your own backup supply. It's just like having your own car battery or a generator at home. If you are, if your house or home is set up to have a power source of its own, like a solar power, like a solar rooftop, that would give you more resiliency with regards to your power source. That would enable you to be able to constantly communicate, because power and communication are usually one of the top tier for the importance with regards to power and the communication, sometimes higher than the water, because this power powers up this water system. So it now provides power for the medical services. So without this power and of course communication with the globe, sometimes you feel like you're so isolated and so helpless. But if you have these kinds of systems available to you, that would be great. On the other hand, with regards to the commercial side of having your own power source, purchasing power from the grid would still make sense. On the other hand, with regards to resiliency, it really does make sense to have your own power system, like a solar or a home version of a windmill, just like what we have.
The part of your services, aside from the power generation, are you providing any battery storage services now? Aside, not just for yourselves, obviously, but for your customers, are you providing that kind of stability?
Well, it's only recent that batteries are now getting more of an attention, or more of a starting to enter the market. We do have a battery energy storage system that supplies regulation and regulation and contingency reserve for the grid, but that can also be used as a source for power need during crisis. These large lithium battery containers are generally designed to provide energy to the grid, but when it comes to disaster, they are also available that can be used in-house or even for external. Just to on the solar side or on the wind side, aside from the batteries, what we do, for example, when we have these kinds of disaster in our solar plants in remote areas, when power outage is not available in the city, but we do have power in our solar plants, we do provide charging stations for the communities, because one thing that you will notice that after a disaster strikes a certain community, power and communication are one of the first ones that they actually demand to have it restored. So we have a more robust system because we are generally required and connected to the grid, and the grid is more stable than the usual distribution unit. So most of the time, 80 or 90% of the time, our power plants have power sources, even if the community outside don't have any power. So what we do provide is that when these things happen, we open up our available resources and provide power stations, power charging stations. So we provide tents, we provide areas where the local communities can come and charge their portable devices, maybe power banks and cell phones, or even sometimes their car, so that they can use it when they go back to their homes. And also, I think that this is also true with our sister company Globe. We provide the telecommunications, and they sometimes we partnered with them where they source the power to us and they provide the telecommunication means.
Yeah, so important, power. In the DRM business, when a disaster strikes, no power generally means we're going to run out of telco soon.
Yes.
And we're going to be definitely out of water soon. So we try to restore power as quickly as possible. So stability is so important. Laurel, I have a question for you. You've had a lot of experience with Typhoon Sandy and other, Hurricane Sandy and other hurricanes. What advice would you have for our cities and for the country in general, how to prepare and how to recover or how to build, resilience against these hurricanes? I mean, we call them typhoons here, but they're pretty well equivalent to a category 4 or 5 hurricane.
Yeah. Thank you. And so wonderful to be part of this conversation. The presentations have been so interesting. I saw that question as well in the chat, and I just jotted down a few notes from the experiences that I've been a part of. And I think you've been talking about them in the last few minutes. So first and foremost, the importance of the energy grid. Everybody has a different setup, but especially when you're talking about islands, we saw this in Puerto Rico. The importance of that energy grid to be resilient, to allow for the self-sufficiency and the recovery, all the things you're talking about. There's a whole host of regulatory issues in the US that also impede the development and investment in grids. I don't know if you have the same problem there, but just point number one was just the energy grid and the importance of building it on renewables if possible. Second, this is very basic, but I think so important, just the building code. What we did after Sandy was we tied federal funding to building code that had, when buildings were being rebuilt, they had to be built at the floodplain level +2 feet. So it was a way to say, if you're going to use federal funding, and maybe your building code doesn't account for this locally, we need you to think about the future, not just about the past, so that you're going to build a home at a higher level so that the next storm, the chances of the damage are much less. So I would say using the building code and using the tools you might have across the country to try to set building codes locally. If that's, I don't know if that would work in your country, but we did a lot of that work, and I think it made a big difference in the Sandy affected areas. Third topic was just materials, what you rebuild with. Again, I'm sure you're seeing all of these things. It's come up in the last few hours already, but durable, flexible. I loved the redesign of the schools and how they're sort of preparing for this. The fourth topic, I think is controversial, but somebody mentioned it in the chat. It's what we call in the United States managed retreat. The idea that maybe there are places you shouldn't rebuild. And it's really, really, really complicated for a whole host of, property ownership, culture, all of those things. But in New York, we used some of the Hurricane Sandy money to buy out homeowners and create parks because you knew there was going to be another flood event in the next year and another one after that. And maybe there was going to be a hurricane or maybe there was going to be nothing, but at least in the next 10 to 15 years, you'd have the same problem all over again. So it's a question, and this is true in New Orleans as well. It's like people maybe should not have built the kinds of buildings they did there. And the solution may be rebuilding, but sometimes it's also about rethinking the pattern of settlement, which again is very, very hard to do, but is something that I think we learned a lot about from those disasters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have a follow-up question
Sure.
with Laurel.
Yes.
Hi, Laurel. Yeah. With your presentation earlier, I noticed that you mentioned that there was this interagency task force that were created for your watersheds. I think that's one of the things that I believe should be made stronger here in the Philippines.
Yeah.
Because what we have observed, or what I have observed personally, is that when a certain disaster strikes, every single government agency have their own programs, how to restore. Department of Education, we have the Department of Public Works and Highways, flood projects, individual pockets of different projects, specifically targeting to make the hit area more resilient in the future. On the other hand, it seems that there are somewhat no connection or coordination happening in between these government agencies. That's why what I feel is that they end up having misaligned or not fully coordinated projects, which should probably be more robust if this is a coordinated thing. The last incident or event that I believe this significantly made an impact was during the COVID, where the interagency task force was created. It was only during COVID, but after the COVID, where probably the typhoons or the disasters, we are back to our own individual programs by ourselves. So my question is, what do you propose, or what do you suggest that to make the Philippines understand the importance of these kinds of interagency task force, even for these kinds of incidences like disaster responses? Thank you.
Oh yeah, no, I think it's sort of one of the questions at the heart of all of this. And to me, I think this is part of why the model of delivery is so powerful. If you can align people around a broad shared outcome, like we want the schools to open within a week after a disaster. And what does it take to do that? That probably means you need the roads to work, you need electricity, you need water, you need kids to have some kind of food, not just the school itself to open the door and the teacher to be there. So maybe starting with a really concrete, important and hard, but still very concrete outcome. And then you map back to how you get there. And I think that's part of what we call the delivery chain, right? Like all the pieces that connect to that. Maybe that's a way to anchor people in a common set of goals so that they can start to see it's not just about their turf or their idea, but that they're part of this larger set of goals that are needed to get kids back to school within that target timeline, as an example.
Thank you.
I have one other related thought, if I could, Bill. do you
Sure,
mind
go
if I-
ahead, Laura. Go ahead, Laura.
I saw this question in the chat and I wanted to, because I think it's related. It was a question, a very good question about how do you ensure the continuity of a plan when the political cycle changes? And I just wanted to throw a few thoughts quickly out there. One, you need that capacity in government beyond the political leadership, what's what we call in the US political leadership, but elected leadership or the temporary kind of figurehead or top of an agency, right? Like it's the people below that level. Second, you need successes and metrics. And I try to do this in every job I've been in, where you create success that goes beyond the timeline of the political cycle. So it's like, oh, everybody's excited because we're going to be able to get kids back into schools a week after a disaster next year. And we're setting that target, even if the mayor's leaving office this year, right? Like you kind of create metrics outside that cycle. And then the third is, and we did this very successfully with Sandy, is creating stakeholders outside of the structure of delivery that happens right after a disaster. So we created a design competition in New York for new ways of rebuilding after Sandy that were very innovative in the harbor and other parts of New York City, and did a global design competition that got all these architects very excited about testing their ideas in New York. And it just created this whole momentum. It built funding and it created financing vehicles, but also built this whole momentum for people that was way beyond like the governor or the mayor, right? It was a bigger thing that people got excited about. So hopefully those are some helpful ideas for you.
Thank you, Laura. I have so many other questions, but I want to open up the floor for questions here. Yes, please. Yeah, go ahead. Laura's the next. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, good morning. I'm Eugene Earl of representing POSC and Opto Limited. Yeah, I have quite an interest with business continuity plan and disaster recovery plans. And I would like to address this question to Ms. Laurel, Reginald, and Director Neri. Do your organizations maintain or are preparing a BRP, DRP manual? And would you encourage other organizations to have one?
Yeah. Well, for government, what we develop is the public service continuity plan. It's aligned with the business continuity management system of the ISO, but it's more adapted to the Philippine governance setting. And we're pushing it down to the lower levels of governance in depth. But when it comes to the school, we require them to create their respective DRRM plans and contingency plans that are specific to a hazard. So that is not a one plan fits all. It's a contingency plan for fire, contingency plan for earthquakes, for landslides, etc. And that's the reason why we are now looking into the multi-hazard risk already. So it's never a single hazard alone. And coming up with the plan is easy. We can even automate it. But the problem and the challenge is how to maintain it and how to exercise all of the protocols therein. So it's really important that first we have those specific plans. It doesn't have to be very elaborate. What's important is the lead, the school head, the school division superintendent, the regional director understands what to do when this happens, okay? And it should be drilled regularly, just like the national simultaneous earthquake drill. It's not just the children doing the cover and hold, evacuating. You should be able to also practice your protocols for rescue, for emergency telecommunications, etc.
Yes. So to that effect, I would say that we still need to improve on it. I came from the private sector prior to joining government. And right now, as Sir Ninoy said, it's mostly at the national level. But the mayor has already issued orders to that effect. With the drive of our DRR right now, they go straight to the barangays, as the point of contacts, because every barangay has a very different risk profile or a hazard risk. So it will boil down again to leadership. In the absence of a Bible, so we say, like from national passed down to government, to the local government, it would highly depend on the local chief executive if he has priorities in terms of addressing DRR, and also has the drive to equip people in the institution, like Ms. Laurel mentioned earlier. That's one of the things actually that the mayor is really driving at, is to strengthen institutions within the local government, because I think that's where the Philippines really lacks. So at least for our case, the mayor has it in his priorities and issued orders to that effect. But personally, I think we can still improve on it. And this is why we have these forums, is to bounce off of each other and learn from each other. So thank you.
Thank you. Laurel, yeah, I was going to ask you, Laurel, what are your lessons coming, after Sandy and Katrina and Maria, from a business continuity point of view for government institutions and agencies? What lessons do you have you learned?
I have spent so many hours doing continuity exercises, tabletops, blah, blah, blah. I agree with everything that's been said. The only thing that I would add that I have not heard is you have to go back and adapt it if you go through the disaster and you learn that what you put in place wasn't the right thing, right? Whether it's because the person has left, whether it's because a capability has changed, whether it's because you learned that actually the sequence you had planned was not the right one. I just think this question of keeping it iterative and updating it, it's been touched on a little bit, but doing it in a way that takes the lessons learned, because we are living in a time of unprecedented climate changes. So you actually can't fully anticipate, I think, what's going to happen. So making sure you continue to evolve is the best way to be prepared.
Yep, thank you. So for the information of all, public service continuity programming, as Director Ninoy mentioned, is actually mandatory for all government agencies and units, and that goes top to bottom, national to local. So there's a manual that's been co-developed by Office of Civil Defense and PDRF. It's available for free, so there's a manual and a template that they follow. But as Laurel said, I think it's important to be iterative. You have to do it regularly, frequently, and you have to be prepared for changes. That's number one. Number two, you've got to kind of practice this out in terms of tabletop drills, but more importantly, you have to actually should go through physical drills as well, because there's kind of a muscle memory that you need to build and have to be prepared for. So for instance, early next year, the business community and PDRF and the government, we will do a 3-day exercise called Project 72 that will just focus on earthquake preparedness. And that's just one hazard. And as Ninoy said, today we live in a world of multiple hazards. And in the case of the Philippines, our multiple hazards are concurrent, hazards. We can be dealing with 2 emergencies at the same time. We saw this, of course, during COVID plus typhoons, but now we have typhoons and earthquakes coming together as well. So we do have to be prepared for very complex situations. Okay, where was the next question, Freud? Here? Okay, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Therese from Legazpi City. So on public trust, liability, and long-term city competitiveness, that's my question here. In light of the, it's the elephant in the room, in light of the repeated corruption in resilience and flood control projects that waste public funds and endanger communities, how can LGUs restore public trust, safeguard long-term urban livability, and implement infrastructure planning systems that are transparent, participatory, and insulated from political interference?
Okay, Mr. Lorico, I'm going to go to you because you're the only LGU official here with us today.
When you're in government, there's always the perception that you're not gonna be able to deliver, that you're there for lip service, so to speak. But as Mayor Agda has always mentioned it in almost, because I always go with him in most of his appearances, it's really showing that you're sincere in the way you govern and presenting yourself to your constituents. He really goes down to, because Borongan is quite large, we would really schedule visits to them, whether announced or unannounced. You really have to show up and show that the reason for your being there is really for good governance. And as we already mentioned earlier, institutionalizing services would help you because, for example, in our case, if the mayor exits already by 2028, of course, people in Borongan would expect the same services to continue. So if some crooked politician, for example, hopefully doesn't happen to us, decides to take advantage of these programs or even dismantle them, people would immediately feel the impact and would demand for government to correct itself. So it's a coming together, not just from leadership, but also rallying people behind you in the cause of good governance. So I would concede that in some cities it would be harder to institutionalize such programs, but so long as there is strong partnership, as the mayor would also say, strong partnership with civil society organizations, other stakeholders, more and more people will demand for more. And it's a journey, but to us, at least in Borongan, that's how we see it. In fact, we open ourselves so much as to people who would criticize or give feedback towards our programs. We highly welcome those things because it's also an effort of us in government to show that we really care in improving service delivery. So I think institutionalizing programs would help by a mile, at least in our case.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's really a nice practical approach. We need to have outside stakeholders involved, and I don't think we can entrust and should place the entire burden on the government to deliver. But the other thing I think that would be interesting is that we need to have a great deal of transparency. I think delivery is all about, literally implementing something good, but having some measures behind it so we know if it's progressing, and to have accountabilities also established so we know that who's in charge and who's responsible for delivering that particular service. And I think if all these elements come into place, we'll be able to build up a high trust level. And I think that's what we've seen with many countries around the world as well. No, Ninoy, I have a more sort of a practical question regarding the schoolhouses that you mentioned. The
temporary spaces.
Yeah, I was going to ask. First of all, are they meant to be just temporary, and are they spec'd out to be able to withstand up to a certain magnitude or intensity of earthquake or wind levels, things like this. In other words, it has to do with the design of the structure.
Okay, as to the learning continuity spaces, it was really designed to replace damaged structures, damaged classrooms. So while we all know it takes a lot of time to get funding, repair classrooms. So sometimes it takes more than 6 months to 2 years to repair school buildings. And this is an immediate measure for us to be able to deliver the learning continuity in schools. As to the strength of materials and the design, definitely it cannot compete with the built structure, but it has a minimum design criteria, and it covers a certain wind speed and a certain magnitude. Yeah. The good thing about the temporary learning space, it's a pop-up system. So when you see a very big storm coming, you can fix it and pack it up. Then after it passed, you can set it up again. Okay? That has been a product of experience, because most of the temporary learning spaces, although called temporary, it's built more on a fixed level. So the school administrators have difficulty in dismantling it when there's a incoming hazard. So that's part of the design. It has been built, it has been checked by structural engineers and architects professionally coming from the DepEd, and it was checked also by our partners from the UAP and ASEP for stability. But again, if you let's compare apples to apples. Let's compare temporary learning space versus another temporary learning space. It should not be compared against a school building multi-story, which has a different stress capability. Okay. If I may also respond to the earlier question. Public trust, it's quite very interesting. And definitely we in the DepEd, amidst all of these findings, we always find we always look into other alternatives. We always challenge the default. So for instance, when the call for transparency is there, we go the extra mile. We extend our hand and ask our partners for you to help us. It's not only the eyes that see that if government is doing right or wrong, but if it's getting participation from the private sector, the civil society, in the heavy lifting, for example. And I'm sure there will be a lot of opportunities. And there will be a lot of satisfaction coming from the community, because the sense of ownership will also be coming from them. So, thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple more questions for you. One is the default strategy for the government is that the school is the evacuation center, right? Has there been any attempt to rethink the strategy to say, let's build dedicated evacuation centers so we don't tie up the school system and bog it down? Because when people evacuate, it's hard to get them to evacuate out back to life again and to reopen the school. So while it's occupied, you can't run schools. So that's one. The second is I was struck by Borongan's approach of promoting agriculture, and which really, it just makes so much sense to me that when they buy their relief goods, they're buying local produce. Yeah, and they're buying fresh and they're buying local produce. In DepEd's case, it does, you didn't mention anything about providing food, but I know DepEd has a separate program for feeding children in school. So you would think that you have a quarter of the country's population as your customers or constituents. You would think that that's enough to support a very large food program that will help our farmers find a market. So why don't we kind of match the two, the farmers community and the feeding program of DepEd, not outside of a disaster area, just a feeding program of DepEd?
Okay, very good question, and I find it connected. First of all, for everyone's information, we have the Ligtas Pinoy Act that requires all LGUs to build a permanent evacuation center. So, of course, with all resiliency built in, but again, given the limited fiscal space, the only available structure in the field is the school. But we have continuously communicated this, that yes, for humanitarian purposes, you can use the schools not more than 15 days. Because we apart from the humanitarian concerns, we also need to look into the learning continuity of our children. And that's the reason why we really have to, we encourage all LGUs to really build or identify a designated safe evacuation center. But currently, in the past disasters that I mentioned earlier, we still cater to a lot of evacuees, and we shelter them, and that's also part of our response. No? So as to feeding, you all know we are operating under the response clusters, under the NDRIMC. And under the response clusters, we have what we call the food and non-food cluster. And that is being led by our partners in DSWD. So if you're familiar with the very popular family food bank, okay? But the good thing about innovation is when you combine it with fresh produce coming from the local market. Because it's so unsatisfactory to eat can of sardines for 2 weeks. And you really have to have variation. You have to get into the nutritional value of the food that you eat. And that's also the reason why we tap into the local markets. We tap into the communities in creating our central kitchen, which is part of our feeding programs, school feeding programs. So we only provide feeding programs to children in school. But if they are in their respective houses or in their evacuation centers, of course, that we have the DSWD providing the community kitchens there. So we basically connect the dots. We know our roles. We also know when to implement the different programs that we ought to implement. That is to consider the collaboration activities and complementation of government services.
Okay, thanks, Ninoy. So, yeah, I didn't realize there was that law that required communities to build their own evacuation centers. So that's good to know. Lee, a question for the renewable side. I know that you give large commercial customers a choice, right? What to buy. Has DepEd ever been considered a target market? For instance, can we put in more solar power in schools, and maybe not nationwide initially, but slowly region by region? Can you electrify, or are you guys doing it already, Ninoy?
No, as a matter of fact, we're doing that specifically for our last mile schools. But as I presented earlier, the harvest is calling. There is a lot of things that we can together. And no agency, no government agency can do it alone. And I also would like to engage ACEN. Perhaps if you have a micro model of your implementation, you may want to pilot it in one of our last mile schools. Off-grid, definitely there are a lot of schools, more than, it's about 10,000 schools that are still wanting of connectivity and power. So you may want to consider those areas, or even as part of the business continuity strategies of schools. You may want to do dual power sourcing, whether it's alternative or on-grid.
Yeah, thank you. Well, for us, ACEN, we generally belong to the power sector. And the agency that covers us is actually Department of Energy, and DOE is very crucial with regards to every time there's a something that would probably interrupt power delivery to all the households. And on our part, aside from our commitment to the continuous stability of the grid, we also provide our own. We also have our own programs, which we usually call our CSRs. And we all, aside from the government mandated incentives that we are mandated to provide, we also have we do have our CSR programs. And together with me is the head of our community development, Ms. Sara Banyaga. And what we usually do in our plans is that we budget these kinds of different programs. So with regards to public school having solar rooftops, we've done that multiple times. In our areas, not even just in the location where we are found, even to the far-flung areas like the ones up in the mountains of Negros, we do provide solar panels as part of our activities. We usually do aside from the tree planting, we veered from those kinds of projects into a more programs that provide general impact to the community. Solar rooftops for public schools, public rooftops for public markets, and we do this as part of a donation, not even part of any kind of revenue sharing, but really more of a CSR activities for our communities, because we believe that where we do our business, the Ayala company would love to have the communities around us also thrive together with us.
Great. That's good news to have. Okay, I'm afraid time's up. I'll just take one last question if there's one.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
My name is Alan Williams. I'm a civil engineer, and I've lived in the Philippines for a long time and worked with many local governments, mainly in the Visayas and Mindanao. I was very interested in Borongan. I haven't been to your area because I've been mainly in the central and western Visayas. But from what you said, it seems as if your city is very sort of advanced and comprehensive in its approach. You also, from some of the things you've said, it seems to be a large physical area and a relatively small population, just 77,000, I think you said. Now, from my experience of working in other parts of the Philippines, where cities are much more urbanized than your place probably is, a lot of the problems that we're having today seem to stem from bad development decisions that were made many years ago, going right back, 50, 60, 70 years, where floodplains are being developed with urbanization. Deforestation, of course, is a well-known one. So I think we can forestall a lot of these problems, or at least mitigate them, if we have better planning and enforcement of the planning regulations at the beginning of the process, rather than wait until it's overdeveloped. Now, in your Borongan, are you having this sort of approach where you want to, like your land use planning, your zoning, and then protecting the floodplains and that sort of thing? Are you trying to build that into your management system for the local government? And if you are, how could we get this more generally accepted as a practice in other cities around the Philippines?
Okay, so currently we're actually updating our CLUP, or Comprehensive Land Use Program. And for a while, it has been actually neglected in our city. So we're actually playing catch up, hence those programs that we are actually talking about. The challenge there really is in implementation and enforcing. And we're no stranger to that. We encounter those problems on a regular basis. However, the mayor has actually, in his effort to strengthen governance, he's putting more, he's entrusting more power actually towards officials in the hopes that they would shape up and actually enforce what they're mandated to do. So I get to see some of the documents that get passed through to the mayor. And actually our city building official is very strict when it comes to implementing the building code, for example, and also our planning office. It's such that we have already filed a number of cases against people who violate these codes, including our land use plans. The thing is, we really need to do this while we're still a small city, because we don't want, what's going on with our other big cities in the country. And for other LGUs that are listening, actually, this is the challenge for us, is how to strengthen institutions, how to strengthen offices, of course, within the bounds of the law. As regards an example as to in our way of implementing this correctly, we were actually one of 5 cities in the Philippines that were granted by the DOF of the People's Survival Fund, which is to implement any climate mitigating project. And ours is a combination of livelihood, a combination of flood control, and a flood control where there's an open park space. So we're not afraid to mention this project because we know that we're doing the right job. And it will, again, the mayor will come and pass. But if he is resolute in his drive to reform government, however local the office may be, and we would actually see some results. So at least for us, we really enforce the codes, the building code, and what's in the CLUP, and we have all the records that will show for that. So I hope more LGUs will also be as stringent. And at the end of the day, it's our people who will suffer if we don't do our job.
I have one last question, a follow-up question for you, Mr. Lorico. I read somewhere that one of the areas which has saved Borongan from the impact of storms has been its strong forest cover. Could you tell us a little bit about that? Because I've heard your mayor speak about that.
Yes, actually, I kind of regret that I failed to mention it earlier in the presentation, especially when I was talking about Bloomberg and PDRFN. We have over 60% of our land area, which is covered by forests, and we intend to keep it that way. And partly we're protected by the fact that there is the SINP, or the Samar Island Natural Park cover, and then also through our own government efforts. If some of you are aware, Samar actually continues to be a hotbed of the New People's Army. But we were able to reverse that in Borongan. Many of the former rebels, actually, we employed them as forest rangers who helped preserve the forests. And we, as Sir Guillermo said, we have been largely protected from many disasters because of our locust forest cover. And I really do hope that future leadership, not just in our locality, because it can be influenced by, especially if they find something, you know what I mean? But as far as we're in charge, we're committed to keeping that way. And also, for the remainder of the term of the mayor, actually, we are focusing on strengthening our renewable energy portfolio. And Rocky Mountain Institute has helped us identify areas where we can do solar. Of course, we'll start it first with the City Hall and government complex. Again, I really hope that more LGUs really prioritize their environment, because we've been seeing the effects already, and it continues to happen to this day.
Great. Thank you very much. Well, it's been such an interesting discussion, and I'm sure we could be here much longer, but we're already a little bit over time. So please, first of all, join me in thanking our wonderful panelists and more online, and Lee and Ninoy and Mr. Lorico. Let me turn over to Josh to help us close the program.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you to our speakers. That was such a rich and wide-covering conversation and discussion. And a big thank you to those in the room who asked questions and those online. So much of the vibrancy of a panel discussion is fed by the audience, so thank you. I'm here to close today's session. It's been some fantastic insights that we've heard around disaster resilience, disaster preparedness. And I think there are 4 key takeaways that I'd really like to call out. And they're actually touched on in the panel and I guess throughout the various presentations and discussions. So number 1 is starting with an outcome. Start with an outcome you want to achieve to anchor partners in a shared goal. So, and especially Laurel, the point you raised earlier as part of the panel discussion, you know, so much of it is about sustainability and continuity. The way in which you can genuinely gather partners together and drive alignment and stand the test of time is by anchoring it into a goal and outcome that can't be reversed. Think expansively about who your partners are. More often than not, it's not just the people right in front of you, the stakeholders, the organizations within your own system, but it's those that sit outside of it who can really be a helping hand and support meaningful outcomes in your community. Number 3, there were so many slides and so many discussions with the most unbelievable data and maps, and clearly. Data and the practice of data, being able to use data to drive where you provide support, how you bounce back stronger is really, really important when it comes to disaster resilience. And then finally, this idea of continuous improvement, learning from the experiences that you have. Unfortunately, we live in a place where disasters occur daily, as we all know, and learning from those experiences in handling those is going to ensure that for the next one, we're even better prepared than the last one. So I just wanted to leave all of you with those 4 key takeaways. I hope you learned as much as I did from this morning's session. I just want to say a very big thank you to Bill and Yenny from Liveable Cities and the Liveable Cities team for this collaboration. And obviously a big thank you to our speakers and partners, the Department of Education, Borongan City, ACEN and Globe Telecommunications. Thank you very much. And obviously, Laurel, thank you so much for joining us all the way from Washington and staying up late. We really appreciate it. And I believe there'll be lunch served after this as well. So thank you, everyone.
May we request everyone to please stand up and move to the center for a quick photo opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Once again, we extend our deepest gratitude to our partners who made this lab possible, our co-presenter, Delivery Associates, with Ms. Anna Needs and Sir Josh Weissman, who joined us on site, and Laurel Blatchford online, together with Globe Telecom, the League of Cities of the Philippines, and Coca-Cola Philippines. Thank you for invaluable support. To our participants joining us here on site, we invite you to join us for lunch at the Bistro 5th floor AIM Conference Center. Ushers wearing white will be stationed to assist you and guide speakers and participants. Lastly, kindly complete the feedback form on your screen or scan the QR code. Your input helps us improve future sessions, and you'll also receive a certificate of participation afterwards. Thank you for being part of this very important discussion. Stay safe, see you at our next lab, and happy holidays.
I think last one you sent me an invite to, but I was and then that was like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? Yeah.
You want it? You want
But everything down pat. Everything.
Once again, we invite everyone to join us for lunch at the Bistro 5th floor AM Conference Center. Ushers are stationed outside wearing white.
With regards to dun sa structures